Lunar calendar, July 28, 119. The black pen repeatedly writes Ding Xiaoyi's name on the brand new contract. After signing each page, the secretary quickly puts away the contract and carefully compares it, ensuring that there are no issues. The thick contract paper gradually becomes thinner page by page. When the young man signed his name on the last contract, the 2 pharmaceutical factories of the Ding family, and the commercial building worth hundreds of billions of alliance coins, were completely severed from any financial ties to him. Mr. Ding, this is the heirloom the chairman designated for you. Ding Xiaoyi took the box and stood up to open the box in front of him. Inside the square paper box, there are only 2 things: a black kangaroo notebook and a property deed. The Ding group has gone bankrupt. Not to mention the property. Even the savings have been frozen by the bank. How could there still be a property left for oneself? Wang Ku seemed to notice the confusion in his heart. We checked this house deed at the housing authority. There was no record of it. As the chairman's belonging, we have given up the right to reclaim this item. Consider it a gesture of gratitude for the chairman's contributions to the company over the years. You're really generous. Ding Xiaoyi responded with a fake smile. Wang Ku has followed the old man for decades. He turns around and goes to help the opponent. Even my husky wouldn't do that. Although Mr. Ying's company has gone bankrupt, all assets have been liquidated. But you still have another debt. This is your personal debt. It's not much. 184,600 renminbi. The repayment date for this amount is on the 8th of next month. I hope you can repay it on time. Otherwise, the bank will sue you. Wang Ku's gaze was fixed on Ding Xiaoying. I hope to see a look of helplessness on this boy's face. After all, he just returned to the country. And now he faces the loss of a loved one. The company went bankrupt. He is now burdened with debts he cannot repay. For a young master who has lived in luxury since childhood, this will be a very difficult realization to accept. At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi is just focused on the property deed in his hand. It's not very large, 300 square meters. Such a property in the highly valued S city. The value is incalculable. What a pity. Just as Wang Ku said. This deed has no legal effect whatsoever. But ultimately, it is a keepsake left by the old man. Take good care of this deed. Pick up the diary in the box. Wang Ku spoke again. Of course, given your actual difficulties, I can help you negotiate with the bank for free, to switch to a semi-annual installment plan. I understand. Unfortunately, Ding Xiaoyi had no intention of continuing the conversation with Wang Ku. He simply nodded, and then walked out of the office. Hey, it's already 10:37 p.m. There are very few taxis around now. How about I give you a ride? It's not safe lately. I've heard there are traces of high-risk organisms recently. Before Wang Ku finished speaking, Ding Xiaoyi waved his hand. Someone has already entered the elevator. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, Wang Ku ran over. He reminded again, you really need to be careful. Because there is a name in your grandfather's belongings. Before he could finish speaking, the elevator closed by itself. What is this guy talking about? What name? At that moment, a 1 yuan bill fell out from the old man's belongings. When the 1 yuan bill fell out from the old man's belongings, the elevator suddenly shook. Even the lights made a sizzling electric sound. Ding Xiaoyi picked up the paper money from the ground. He casually placed the 2 bills into his wallet. As he stood up to press the elevator button. But there was no response no matter what. Waited a little longer. Finally, the elevator opened. Could it be that Wang Ku's husky is behind this? Forget it. I'll just go out first. I wonder what Grandpa is thinking. He actually left me 2 paper offerings. Thinking about the debt I owe. It just so happens that the engine I just purchased is still here. If I can sell it smoothly, I should be able to get some money to ease my urgent needs. With this in mind, a taxi suddenly appeared. This car clearly looked quite old. The old and worn-out car body. The left headlight hasn't turned on yet. A glaring scratch appears on the car body. And this old license plate makes one question whether this car was driven out of a junkyard. This instinctively made Ding Xiaoyi want to refuse to ride in the car. But considering the company's location in the suburbs, Ding Xiaoyi still opened the door and sat in the back seat. Master, to the pier ferry terminal. Alright, hold on tight. As soon as he got in the car, the pungent smell made Ding Xiaoyi feel uncomfortable. It was like something had burned. At this moment, his mind was focused on the engine. He felt a bit reluctant when thinking about it. It had cost him a lot. I just got this engine. When Ding Xiaoyi was lost in thought, the driver turned back to glance at Ding Xiaoyi and said, you look like you're in a daze. Cash, huh? Ding Xiaoyi was taken aback for a moment. He touched his face. Isn't it obvious? You young people nowadays. I don't know what they are thinking. They don't have any real skills. But they sure know how to rack up debt. The driver pointed to the all in the family sticker on the dashboard. That little brat. Not studying properly. Borrowing money to buy things. He started by borrowing 3,000. The more I lend, the more I borrow. It drives me crazy. I've been driving early and late just to earn a little money. And I've put it all into this. Ding Xiaoyi looked over. In the family photo, the 3 of them are smiling. It looks like a very happy family. I just don't understand why the photo is in black and white. The boy in the photo looks about the same age as him. Maybe it's online loans. It might not all be borrowed by him. He could have been scammed. The driver sighed deeply. In the light from outside, it wasn't hard to notice the gray hair at his temples. All while they were talking, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly noticed that the light outside the car was getting darker. Driver, this isn't the right way, is it? Don't worry, this is a shortcut. At that moment, he remembered Wang Ke's shout when he left the company. Thinking of this, Ding Xiaoyi felt a chill in his heart. Could this shortcut be that unlucky? Ding Xiaoyi calmly picked up the phone. However, there was no signal on the phone. Ding Xiaoyi has now confirmed that he has likely left the city. Ding Xiaoyi casually scanned the inside of the vehicle, hoping to find something useful. At that moment, accompanied by a faint sound of braking, the car slowly came to a stop. The young man has arrived. I can't walk down the road ahead. You just go on ahead. Please hand me the fare. Ding Xiaoyi took out a 100-unit alliance currency from his wallet, no change needed. Then he quickly opened the car door. It was pitch black outside. There might still be a chance to escape. Staying in the car would be a dead end for sure. Wait. At this moment, the driver suddenly called out. Ding Xiaoyi got out of the car. He quickly walked up to Ding Xiaoyi. The driver, although middle-aged, but the speed was very fast. Ding Xiaoyi didn't even notice when the other person got out of the car. At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi's wallet and house deed suddenly fell to the ground. Just as he was about to squat down to pick them up, the driver picked up the wallet before he could. He even returned the 100 yuan bill to Ding Xiaoyi. With 2 fingers. Like lightning, he snatched a bill from Ding Xiaoyi's wallet. He smiled at Ding Xiaoyi and apologized. I only accept ghost money. While Ding Xiaoyi was still in shock, the driver hit the gas. Soon, the car's flickering taillights disappeared from view. Looking at the remaining ghost money in his wallet, a chill swept over him. It felt like a giant centipede crawling up my spine, climbing all the way to the top of my head. Now thinking about the burnt smell in the car, and the black and white photo at the front of the car, even the brave and careful Ding Xiaoyu couldn't help but feel a tingling on his scalp. Fortunately, it was already gone. Put away the wallet. He plans to leave here as soon as possible. But what kind of place is this? It's pitch dark. Ding Xiaoyi takes out his phone. After unlocking the bracelet, he faintly sees a small path ahead. But it's not very clear. It always feels kind of blurry, like there's a thin veil over it. At this moment, he suddenly noticed a sign by the roadside. Maybe it hadn't been maintained for a long time. The sign was covered in dust and rust. When he shone his flashlight on it, he could still see spiders tangled around the sign. As he got closer, he saw 3 characters on the sign, Ferry Road, Ferry Road. After seeing the sign, Ding Xiaoyi jolted all over. He quickly thought of the land deed in his pocket. He took out the land deed for a look. It really was Ferry Road. Ferry Road, Chaimu New Residence. Could it be here? Looking at the yellowed land deed in his hand, he suddenly felt a sense of absurdity. In just less than one night, it felt as if he had been dreaming. The experience was truly absurd. Unconsciously, he looked again at the land deed in his hand. Ding Xiaoyi stood at the crossroads, pondering for quite a while. He decided to take a look, because this was the only property left to him by the old man. In fact, long ago, Ding Xiaoyi had already noticed that the Ding family's profits were almost equal to their losses. That's why Ding Xiaoyi wasn't at all surprised or panicked about the family going bankrupt. The only things left to him were a locked diary, an untraceable land deed, and 2 pieces of joss paper. At first, Ding Xiaoyi thought this was the old man playing tricks on him. But now it seems that the things the old man left for him, whether it's this land deed, or those 2 paper money, seem to be quite significant. Rustle, rustle. He hasn't walked far. A sound of waves crashing came. When Ding Xiaoyi stopped in his tracks, he looked at the endless yellow sea before him. For a moment, he couldn't believe it. Is this really S-City? Ding Xiaoyi once again held the land deed in his hands. S-City is inland, adjacent to a large river, so the shipping industry is quite developed. But it's still far from the sea at this point. Ding Xiaoyi vaguely saw a building ahead. He walked over to take a look. It was just a dilapidated wooden house. Huh. Wait a minute. Could this be sudden? Ding Xiaoyi's gaze momentarily locked onto the wooden tray beside him. The wooden plate is almost rotten. Yet the writing on it is still clear and legible. It reads, Firewood New Residence. So it really is here. I didn't expect the old man to find such a place for himself. In confusion, Ding Xiaoyi stepped into the courtyard. As the door was pushed open, the interior of the house was not as bad as I had imagined. The furnishings in the room are very simple. It can be said that it's quite clear at a glance. In the corner, there is a mirror covered with a layer of dust. However, what catches Ding Xiaoyi's attention is the set of keys on the table. There are only 3 keys on it. Ding Xiaoyi picks up the keys. Suddenly, he thinks of the notebook that the old man left for him. Thinking of this, Ding Xiaoyi quickly took out the diary. Click. The silver clasp popped open. The diary was opened. Sure enough, The things left for me are all useful. Taking a deep breath. As I gradually calm my mind, I open the first page of the diary. The date on the first page is December 12th, 92nd year of the alliance. Upon seeing this date, Ding Xiaoyi's eyes dimmed for a moment, and her breathing became a bit rapid. Because this day is the anniversary of her parents' passing. The boat capsized. It was an accident. No one expected it to come so suddenly. I sat on the ground, looking at the 3 bodies of my family of 4. I wanted to save them, but no matter what I did, they didn't respond at all. At that moment, I noticed someone in black clothing approaching from behind me. They were already dead. You can't save them. Who are you? Why do you say I can't save them? The man in black chuckled. Because I am the messenger of the king of hell. At that moment, a flash of lightning struck. I saw the man's vile appearance clearly. In my heart, I instantly understood something. So, I deliberately provoked him. You're the messenger of the king of hell. Then I'm the king of hell's rival. So I made a bet with him. If he could let my family survive, I could save 1 million people in my lifetime. The man called it interesting. He agreed. But only to spare my grandson. So, in that accident, only my grandson, who was under 2 years old, and I survived. That man said before leaving, if you lose, I'll make you understand what regret truly means. Later, I used all my savings and the compensation from the shipping company to open a small pharmaceutical factory. We only produce special medicines. The content of the first page of the diary ends here. At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi only knew that everything the old man had done over the years was to save himself. When Ding Xiaoyi wanted to look at the second page, he was shocked to discover the subsequent pages seemed to be stuck together. It's impossible to turn them at all. No matter how much I tug at them, I can't open the second page. Instead, with a gentle nudge, I directly flipped to the last page. The Alliance, 119 years, July 23rd. That fool is back again. Last time he lost a piece of land to me. It's on Duko Road. He said it used to be the ferry crossing to the underworld, ha ha ha. From then on, that piece of land will be renamed Ding. Ding Xiaoyi saw this, and closed the notebook. He couldn't help but be startled. Looking up at the vast expanse of the yellow spring outside the window, I couldn't help but think of that famous line, what do you call this thing, power? Old man, what on earth have you been doing all these years? The contents in the middle seem to be bound by a special force, not allowing me to watch. Just as Ding Xiaoyi was trying every possible way to open the second page. Bang! A crisp knock echoed from outside the door. A crisp and forceful knock sounded. Ding Xiaoyi quickly became alert. Ding Xiaoyi tiptoed to the door. She looked outside through the peephole. It turned out to be a very cute little girl. Ding Xiaoying. This made her scalp tingle. Although she looked harmless. But what is this place? The Yellow Springs, or more accurately, the Netherworld as people call it. He held his breath. A strong sense of unease seemed to envelop him from all directions. Ding Xiaoyi walked to the table. Just as he was about to reach for the key on the table, buzz. A faint buzzing sound, like a sudden clap of thunder, caused Ding Xiaoyi's arm to freeze. Immediately, a cold gust surged from behind him. A terrible thought suddenly arose in his mind. The door opened, and it was Ding Xiao, whose expression was complicated. His thoughts became chaotic. He didn't turn around. But the sound of footsteps approaching made the hair on his body stand on end. He felt a chill creeping up his soles like an eel. At that moment, he suddenly noticed the mirror beside him. It was reflecting the approaching footsteps. The image in the mirror gradually became clear. He held his breath in realization. A massive crowd was greedily staring at him with eyes larger than a bowl. Countless long, strange tentacles spread down from the severed neck of a head. Like centipede antennae, they crawled on the wooden floor. The floor creaked under the pressure. Looking at the scene in the mirror, sweat the size of beans suddenly rolled down his forehead. But at that moment, I heard a soft voice coming from behind me. The voice sounded very sweet. Ding Xiaoyi stiffened his body. He turned halfway around. With a sideways glance, he discovered that the little girl was actually standing behind him. If he hadn't seen the true face of the little girl in the mirror, he might have really been moved by such a childish voice and innocent appearance, but now, Ding Xiaoyi just wanted to get as far away from the little girl in front of him as possible. He didn't respond to her. Instead, he shifted his gaze back to the mirror in the corner. A huge head slowly opened its mouth. A disgusting tongue stuck out, licking around the edges of its mouth. Seeing this, Ding Xiaoyi took a deep breath and relaxed the tense muscles on his face. She turned around and smiled. Oh, perfect. I've got some food here. I'll go get it for you. As she said this, Ding Xiaoying stepped forward, trying to slip past the girl. But she saw the girl's expression darken, and suddenly the girl blocked her path. Those eyes were staring straight at Ding Xiaoyi's face. You're lying. Ding Xiaoyi discreetly pinched his thigh with his fingers. Using the pain from the thorny vine to stay clear-headed, Ding Xiaoyi forced himself to relax, and kept running. There really is food. I'm not lying to you. When I came, I prepared a lot of food. Which box is it in? He pointed to the big black box in the corner. He kept a smile on his face. You're so cute. I really don't know who was so heartless to leave you here. Fortunately, I brought a lot of delicious food. I'll make sure you eat your fill. Ding Xiaoyi spoke. His gaze fixed intently on the large head in the corner mirror. He seemed to be bewildered by his own words. Ding Xiaoyi secretly rejoiced. However, just as he was about to bypass this large head and escape, the head in the mirror suddenly seemed to sense something. Its eyes abruptly fixed on the mirror, locking gazes with its reflection. You found me. The little girl's face twisted into a grimace. Her smaller body puffed up like an inflated balloon. It expanded in an instant. Ding Xiaoyi leaped forward in a swift motion. He tried to escape through the gap at the edge of the wall. However, his speed was no match for the tentacle of that head. While he was still in mid-step, a slender tentacle lightning fast coiled around Ding Xiaoyu's ankle. The overwhelming force that followed was impossible to resist. In an instant, he was lifted up. At that moment, Ding Xiaoyi noticed the head in the mirror, opening its abyss-like mouth in fury. The air was filled with a strong stench of decay. The nauseating stench seemed to be pronouncing his death sentence. The feeling of powerless struggle was like that of a drowning man. It made Ding Xiaoyi instinctively shout, "Let go!" It was merely a desperate roar for survival, like an ant clinging to life. But just as Ding Xiaoyi's voice fell, the house deed on the table suddenly flickered. The headless monster before him twitched. Uncontrollably, I let go of the hand that was wrapped around Ding Xiaoyi's ankle. Clang! In the horrified gaze of the head, I let Ding Xiaoyi fall to the ground. It seemed I was still confused about why I let go. Huh! Ding Xiaoyi was also stunned by the sudden change before him. But he quickly noticed the house deed on the table. But the yellow deed of the house gleamed with a faint light. Ding Xiaoyi looked at the glowing land deed. In the section for the owner, the name Ding Xiaoyi suddenly appeared in large characters. Looking at his name on the deed, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly remembered the last line on the last page of the diary. Remember, this is the land of the Ding family. Suddenly, Ding Xiaoyi's heart stirred uncontrollably. A bold idea sprang up in my mind. I looked at the dazed head jar in front of me, pointed my hand toward the corner, standing on one leg. As soon as I spoke, in that instant, still confused, the head jar. Suddenly, its body sat up uncontrollably. Just as expected. Seeing the big-headed monster confirmed her thoughts. Ding Xiaoyi felt both surprised and delighted. She thought it was funny, and hilarious as well. So, she struck a series of poses. Crane spreads wings. Wild goose descends on the sand. Guanyin, forget it. You just stay there. Ding Xiaoyi finished speaking, and ignored the exhausted head's resentful and wronged gaze. He turned around and picked up the land deed. He carefully compared it. He was the true owner here. Thinking of this, focus your gaze back on the big-headed monster in front of you. With a point of your hand, roll outside the door. The head monster widened its eyes. It swung its tentacles in a circular motion, trying to resist. However, the invisible force would not allow the head monster to resist at all. Amidst the strange cries of wah wah wah, the headless creature squeezes out of the door. It needs to determine just how large its territory is. This is not only about its own interests, but also about its own life. Then it picks up the keys from the table. 3 keys. One of them is for opening the diary, while the other 2 keys' purposes are unknown. Ding Xiaoyi guessed. One of them should be to open that box. He walked up to the box, and took a glance at the bronze lock on it, and immediately knew it must be that slender copper key. He wondered what good things the old man would leave for him. Ding Xiaoyi couldn't wait to open the box. As the box was gently pushed open a crack, suddenly a strange scream came from inside the box. Immediately, a head popped out of the box with a thud. Its frosty white skin displayed an exaggerated red mouth. Ding Xiaoyi didn't even have the chance to react, before being hit squarely by the head. That collided with his body. Like a cat, it let out a strange cry and jumped out of the box. Then it focused its gaze. What popped out of the box was actually a clown doll. Ding Xiaoyi grinned, suppressing the urge to curse. His expression flickered between light and dark. He didn't even need to think to know this was the old man's trick to mess with him. Looking inside the empty box, it didn't contain the countless treasures he had imagined. There were only 3 items quietly lying in the box. A letter and a photo of myself with the old man. And a fishing rod. But the problem is, why give me a fishing rod? This is the underworld. Am I supposed to fish in the underworld with a rod? Can the fish I catch even be eaten? But since the old man left the fishing rod for himself, it definitely isn't just a toy with himself that simply. Ding Xiaoyi set down the fishing rod, and took out a photo. It was a picture of himself and the old man. It was taken on his 12th birthday. A snapshot of them in the Maldives. He gently stroked the non-existent dust on the photo. After being dazed for a while, he opened the envelope again. The writing on it was neat and strong, as if printed. It was indeed the old man's handwriting. Xiao Yi, you've been tricked again. But this is the last time I'll tease you. I wanted to leave you a keepsake. But after thinking it over, let's forget it. One shouldn't always live in the past. It's important to enjoy living in the present. Seeing this, Ding Xiaoyi's eyes turned red. This box was the old man deliberately teasing her. Ding Xiaoyi looked at the letter in her hand. And a wave of warmth surged in her heart. This is a game that only the grandfather and grandson can understand. It's also the last game the old man plays with him before parting. He knows. The old man is saying goodbye to him in this way. Live in the moment. Ding Xiaoyi looks at the last 4 words. For a long time, he suppresses his choking emotions and collects himself. He knows. The old man has opened a door to a new world for him, revealing a world he had no idea existed. Ding Xiaoyi compared the land deed in his hand. After carefully measuring the land, he found. The deed says, the house serves as the boundary. To the east, there's a courtyard 60 meters long and 40 meters wide. But that area doesn't belong to the homestead. Building is not allowed there. It belongs to private land. But the problem is, after careful measurement, I found it was missing January 3rd. And at that moment, the water was rapidly receding. The area that had just been covered. Strange-shaped stones are exposed. The tide has receded. Looking at the rapidly falling waterline, Ding Xiao was surprised to discover that the yellow spring before her was retreating. The tide is receding quickly. Large areas of mud and reefs are emerging from the murky water. The uneven terrain and jumbled stones create various puddles of different sizes. Some sand is covering the space between them. The shimmering appearance looks more like it has been coated with a layer of gold. Wow, wow, wow. At this moment, the cries of the big-headed monster became even more tragic. It seems to sense something terrifying. Shut up. Ding Xiaoyi was extremely annoyed. He waved his hand to silence the big-headed monster. However, he became even more cautious and alert. The underworld recedes. Puddles of various sizes intertwine with complex reefs. Some of these puddles are as large as 2 swimming pools. Ding Xiaoyi observed carefully for a while. He felt that the sand really did look a bit like gold. Thinking of this, Ding Xiaoyi felt a stir in his heart. He turned around and fixed his gaze on the big-headed monster. The big-headed monster, already terrified to the extreme, was being scrutinized up and down by Ding Xiaoyi. An inexplicable sense of panic surfaced on its ugly face, especially when a smile appeared on Ding Xiaoyi's face. The big-headed monster felt a chill run through its entire body. Its skin instantly turned pale gray, filled with a look of deep unease. It seems like the end of the world is about to come. Gulyalu. Long, slender tentacles intertwine. It looks like a large web has shaken into view. In the murky puddle, under immense fear, the big-headed monster is about to faint. If it were a normal day, he will definitely not get close to the yellow springs. Feel carefully. No matter what you grab, just pull it out for me. Behind the reef, Ding Xiaoyi poked his head out and shouted. Some strange-looking things were being pulled out one after another by the big-headed monster. However, Ding Xiaoyi looked over and discovered that most of it was gold, and some pitch-black coral. For these, Ding Xiaoyi carefully examined them, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. This is all money. Ding Xiaoyi stands behind the rock, and sees clearly. He sees the big-headed monster's tentacle pulling a shell-like object out of the puddle. A black-purple shell, glimmers with an eerie purple light. In the dim light, he doesn't know what it is, but Ding Xiaoyi's fists are tightly clenched. Feeling a wave of inexplicable excitement, Ding Xiaoyi stepped back a couple of steps. He turned to the shivering big-headed monster behind him. It exploded in the big-headed monster's mouth. It let out a muffled sound of resistance. Its body still honestly lay on the purple shell. Tentacles wrapped around the purple back. Claws slipped through the gaps in the shell. I began to forcefully open the shell. I watched as the gap gradually widened. A purple light flickered out from the crack. I focused my gaze. I saw a thumb-sized pearl lying inside the purple shell. The treasure. Ding Xiaoyi looked at the pearl. His face filled with amazement. His thoughts instantly ignited with excitement. Such a huge purple shell. You could even fit a person inside with no problem. It must be at least 1,000 years old. Being unfamiliar and cautious about everything here, Ding Xiaoyi didn't reach out to grab it directly. Instead, he let the big-headed creature reach in one of its tentacles, pull the bead out from inside. But just as I picked it up, I saw the tentacle of the big-headed monster rapidly rot and decay. Upon seeing this, the big-headed monster's face suddenly turned pale. It screeched and threw the bead on the ground. At the same time, it quickly bit off the tentacle with its mouth. Then it swiftly darted to a corner, hiding. He refused to get any closer to the purple orb on the ground. He only saw the tentacles rapidly decaying, until they turned into a pile of rotten flesh. If he had reached out to grab it just now, he didn't know what he would be like now. Just thinking about that scene made goosebumps rise all over his body. However, Ding Xiaoyi was not willing to give up. After all, this was the first time he had seen such rare treasures that only appear in novel stories. After pondering for a while, he took out a piece of gold, and carefully approached the bead. He tried to make contact with the gold. Then, he tried using the key left by the old man. From the results, it seemed quite promising. Ding Xiaoyi looked at his palm from side to side. Let's take a gamble. Ding Xiaoyi steeled himself. His hand shot out like lightning, grabbing the purple orb from the ground. The icy sensation surged through his palm. It felt as if his heart had stopped at that moment. 123. Until the long 10 seconds passed, making him nearly suffocate. Ding Xiaoyi's palm slowly opened. Beneath the thumping sound of his heart, Ding Xiaoyi's cheeks flushed with a deep red. It was hard to tell whether it was nervousness or excitement. Suddenly, a surge of ecstasy welled up in Ding Xiaoyi's heart. It turned out his guess was not wrong. This bead seemed to have a natural restraining effect only on monsters like the big-headed freak. But for a living person like him, it won't cause any harm. Ding Xiao was excited. But soon, a wave of fear followed. After confirming multiple times that the purple orb in his hand was normal, his heart finally felt at ease. Yin Xiaoya suddenly heard a fierce drumbeat in her ears. And then realized. I was already so hungry that my stomach was pressed against my back. The chief instinctively fumbled in his pants pocket. He looked for something to eat. As soon as he touched it, Ding Xiaoyi was taken aback. He took out a bunch of keys from his pocket. 3 keys in total. One was the silver key to the diary. This is the copper key to open the large wooden chest. There's only this thick, black iron key left. What is this key for? Ding Xiaoyi suddenly noticed that there were a few faint words on the key's handle. Chaimu new residence. Isn't this my home? At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi has already considered this place his home. Ding Xiaoyi's fingers gently caress the key. He can't help but murmur softly. He ponders and repeats the words on the key. At that moment, the key in his hand suddenly starts to glow. Before Ding Xiaoyi can react, his figure is swallowed by the light from the key. Accompanied by the screech of brakes, Ding Xiaoyi instinctively raised his hand to cover his eyes. Are you crazy? Listen. Are you looking to die? He heard cursing nearby. Ding Xiaoyi squinted to take a look. I just realized that I was standing on a main road. I'm back. Ding Xiaoyi was stunned to find that he had returned to reality from Chai Mu's new home. It's this key. Ding Xiaoyi ignored the driver's scolding. Excitement was hard to hide on his face. He tried again. As expected, it was just as he thought. The key in his hand was the direct entrance to Chai Mu's new home. Just when Ding Xiaoyi was overjoyed, out of the corner of his eye, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly noticed. The diary on the table had silently flipped open to the second page. Ding Xiaoyi's eyes lit up, and he continued reading the diary. August 20th, 199 years of the Alliance. Damn it. I knew that old guy was suddenly being nice. To take me to see the SS was just a cover. He definitely had ulterior motives. It turns out that after coming back from that place, some bad things would definitely happen around here. No way. I need to go to District 13 to look for my old friends. I hope everything goes smoothly. Looking at the content on this page, it's already gone. Trying to see the next page is just stuck like before. Can't see it. Ding Xiaoyi didn't dwell on it too much. He took out his key and teleported back to reality. After casually eating something, I came to a street I was somewhat familiar with. I turned into a small side road and walked into a gold shop. In fact, the gold I had was difficult to deal with. First, there was no certificate. Second, there was no source. I could only sell it at a discount to these small gold shops or pawn shops. The price will be significantly lower. Brother, your gold is very pure. I won't take advantage of you either. I'm carrying something with risks here. It's weighing on me. With all these utilities and rent, I'm losing money every day. Can we settle on a sincere price of 250,000? Ding Xiaoyi shook his head and said, 280,000. If you can do it, then take it. If not, I'll switch to another one. Don't force it. When a major client comes knocking, you have to act. Hastily, he grabbed Ding Xiaoyu and complained, 270,000. Is 270,000 acceptable? This is a small business for me. It's really easy to hit your hand. 278,000. Part of it is on this card. The rest is all in cash. At that moment, a message played on the radio. It caught Ding Xiaoyu's attention. Today is July 31st, the 119th year of the Alliance. Recently, the exploration team discovered the latest psionic creatures in the New World. This discovery marks a new chapter in the history of the Alliance. The research on psychic organisms will enter a new phase. Psychic organisms. Hey. What are psychic organisms? Isn't that just what we call the Ghost Gate? I haven't seen it. Maybe. The Alliance categorizes these spiritual beings based on their threat level. They are divided into 6 levels: Divine Dragon, Disaster, Evil, Merchant, Spirit. Each level has 3 ranks, upper, middle, and lower. So, what about the big-headed ghost? Is it considered a spiritual being? And what level does it belong to? Sigh. There are too many mysteries. Ding Xiaoyi wasn't planning to go deep into the alley. He just wanted to find a quiet, deserted place to go home. He took the keys out from his pocket into his palm. His hand gently stroked the keys. But just at that moment, tap 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 tap, a series of hurried footsteps approached. It was the sound of high heels hitting the cobblestones. Clear and powerful. From afar, it can be heard clearly. Someone. As the figure in the distance under the halogen lights becomes clearer, what catches the eye first is a pair of bright red high heels. As the shoes step forward, under the light, the owner of the shoes gradually comes into view. Ding Xiaoyi was suddenly taken aback. Then he exclaimed, The figure under the light in front was difficult to see clearly from a distance. It was about 170 to 178 centimeters tall, not exactly strong, but had broad shoulders. It was clearly a man. A man, in the middle of the night, wearing bright red high heels. What was unexpected at that moment was, the man suddenly halted his steps. His stiff body slowly turned around. In those deep-set eye sockets, a pair of bloodshot eyes couldn't help but lock onto Ding Xiaoye. I can't move. Please help me. Come help me. The man stepped closer, approaching step by step. The high heels on the concrete path made a piercing sound with each step. Ding Xiaoye's expression turned cold. Although he was willing to help others, that didn't mean he liked to meddle in other people's affairs. Moreover, this man in front of him was clearly not normal. Sorry. I'm in a hurry. Saying this, Ding Xiaoye turned around and ran back. However, just as he was about to run out of the street, he found there was actually no way forward. What's going on? Ding Xiaoye felt a surge of panic in his heart. Could it be that he had encountered the legendary ghost wall? At the same time, he fumbled in his pocket for the keys. As he walked, he repeatedly muttered the words, Chamek Sinju. But this time, the keys did not respond at all, they were useless. Realizing that the keys actually didn't work, Ding Xiaoye's brow furrowed slightly. This sent a chill through him. His mind involuntarily recalled that nauseating ride. Accompanied by the sound of footsteps in my ears, a grayish-white hand suddenly grabbed my shoulder from behind. The strength of this hand was surprisingly strong. At that moment, Ding Xiaoye finally got a clear look at the man in front of him. His sunken cheeks. Underneath his pale skin, the deep-set eyes. Both eyes were filled with dense blood vessels. Dissatisfaction. My man grabbed towards Ding Xiaoye's throat with both hands. His seemingly emaciated arms easily lifted him off the ground. However, at this moment, Ding Xiaoye's eyes flashed. He pushed his palm towards the man's chest. A dazzling purple light suddenly flickered in Ding Xiaoye's palm. The purple light collided with the man's chest, as if producing some kind of chemical reaction. A loud bang sounded. It was like a fireball exploded between the two. When the man touched the flames, he let out a scream of agony. He flung his arms. Ding Xiaoye felt like his body was thrown like a sandbag. He slammed into the nearby wall. The searing pain nearly knocked him unconscious. At this moment, a purple light flickered in front of him, quickly engulfing the man's upper body. Hiss! The man let out a piercing scream. His body struggled wildly in the purple flames, but his flesh and blood were melting away like a candle. Ding Xiaoye caught a whiff of a foul smell. The moment he caught a whiff of that smell, he couldn't help but vomit. Ding Xiaoye covered his mouth, and, disregarding his injuries, quickly got up and ran back. It wasn't until he was 10 meters away that he dared to take a deep breath. At that moment, the purple flame in the alley has gone out. Along with it, the man's screams from just now have also faded away. Ding Xiaoye covered his mouth and nose, and leaned in to observe closely. He saw that the body had already been burned to a pile of human-shaped ashes. I'm sorry. You are already dead. I can't save you. The specific effect of the piglet. He is still not very clear. But from his own experiments, the effect of the piglet is very domineering. But it only targets female spirit-based beings. After Ding Xiaoye glanced at the corpse, he instinctively shifted his gaze to the feet of the corpse. Those bright red high heels left a deep impression on him. But just at that moment, Ding Xiaoye's face suddenly froze. His gaze was fixed on those feet, burned to ashes. Where are they? The high heels are gone. A chilling sensation surged over him, making Ding Xiaoye's scalp tingle. Suddenly, the sound of bright footsteps echoed on the shining bluestone slab. A pair of bright red shoes stepped out from the darkness. Seeing the blood-red high heels, Ding Xiaoye was immediately on high alert. She was right in her assumptions. The true exquisite being was not the man charred on the ground, but this pair of striking red shoes in front of her. Quickly clenched the purple bead in his fist, assuming a defensive posture, alert to the high heels in front of him. However, the shoes did not come closer. He stood in the shadows, quietly standing there. After a long while, the left shoe moved slightly forward. The right shoe, however, stepped backward. Before he could understand what the shoes were doing, he saw them turn and walk toward the end of the alley. The sound of footsteps was much lighter and quicker than before. At least it no longer gave that nerve-wracking feeling like earlier. The shoes gradually disappeared into the dim yellow light. Ding Xiaoye shook his head. He tried to clear his mind a bit. Then he turned and left the alley. An hour later, click. The flash of a camera kept flickering on the old wall. What's going on? Detective Pirret stood aside and asked the forensic expert from a distance, while glancing at the body in the corner of the room. The body was severely decomposed and had been dead for at least a week. But the fire wasn't the cause of death. It happened after the person died. Judging by the freshness of the ashes, it feels more like what happened last night. Very strange. His footsteps are severely worn. In fact, some areas show bone deformities. Such injuries. He must be in a lot of pain with every step. It seems the killer tortured him. The forensic expert shares his deductions as best as he can. But there are still many details that don't stand up to scrutiny. Detective Pillett took out the paper notification letter and placed it in front of the forensic expert. According to the Union Treaty, this case is now being taken over by our Sproutwood Guild. After exiting the alley, Ding Xiaoyi didn't immediately find a place for Chaimu's new home, but instead found a relatively clean hotel in the old town. He comfortably took a hot shower and changed out of the clothes soaked in a rotten stench. Ding Xiaoyi was sitting on the bed resting, while casually browsing property listings online. The news playing on the hotel TV caught his attention. Now broadcasting a news report, several robberies have occurred recently in the city. The Alliance police have already identified a suspect. If you have any clues about this suspect, please report to the authorities immediately. The appearance of a wanted notice made Ding Xiaoyi freeze in surprise. Looking at the man's photo, he was shocked. So it's him. Ever since the old man's relics were mentioned, strange things have kept happening. Just how many secrets did the old man have? I didn't know. Chai Mushin's familiar touch brushed against the cold key. As I chanted the last word in my mouth, a mass of black mist reflected in Ding Xiaoyi's pupils. With that familiar sensation of weightlessness and pulling, Ding Xiaoyi instinctively lifted his head to look at the diary on the table. I hope to see the diary. I obediently turned to the third page. Did I overlook something? Ding Xiaoyi rested his chin on his fingers. He pondered whether he had overlooked some information. Thinking of this, he picked up the diary again. He started from the first page, carefully reading every word. Suddenly, a very brief message appeared in his view. It turned out that after returning from that place, some bad things would definitely happen around. No, I have to go to District 13 to find my old friend. Wait a minute. When he saw this sentence, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly perked up. It seems like he realized what he had been overlooking. He kept repeating the first two parts of that sentence. Damn it. So that's it. The place mentioned in the diary. It's probably no other place but the underworld, if that's the way to interpret it. In other words, as long as I leave here and return to reality, something bad is bound to happen around me. Judging from the encounter with a spiritual entity last night, this bad thing might just be confirming the thought that popped into my mind. At that moment, a chill surged through my heart. In the second to last segment, they raised the old man and the king of hell's messengers' deepest wishes. They bet on my grandson, Ding Xiaoyi, to be able to live happily on that land. This light-hearted sentence. At the time, it seemed like there was no problem. The biggest crisis was just the big-headed monster that accidentally came in. After confirming his own authority, he has not taken this crisis to heart. Until now, he finally understands. It turns out that living happily has a much deeper meaning hidden beneath it. How could the other party bet their own lives and make it as simple and easy as he imagined? No matter what kind of wager exists between this messenger of the underworld and the old man, clearly, being stuck in the middle won't be easy. Ding Xiaoyi recalled what happened last night. If it weren't for the purple bead protection in his hand, he might have been in trouble last night. After closing the diary again, Ding Xiaoyi walked out of the room with a heavy expression. According to what the old man wrote in the diary, he just needed to stay out. Then I could live my life steadily like a normal person. But that's clearly impossible. Everything here is a treasure left behind by the old man. Beneath the endless yellow springs lies too much that I can't even imagine. If I were to give it up and become an ordinary person, Ding Xiaoyi feels that I don't have that kind of enlightened mindset yet. So the other way is to find ways to strengthen myself. As long as you have powerful strength in your hands, even if you encounter it, there might still be a chance to retreat safely. As for how to strengthen oneself, isn't the boundless yellow springs before us the best answer? Ding Xiaoyi's gaze was fixed on the endless yellow springs in front of him. A trace of golden light occasionally shone through Luoguang. Of course. To achieve this, I still need a capable assistant. At this moment, Duzi thought of how there was nothing to eat in this godforsaken place. Fortunately, I had bought a lot of instant noodles at the convenience store. Just as I was about to eat, the big-headed monster looked at the noodles in my hand, drooling with desire. So, Ding Xiaoyi decided to make something for this guy as well. After all, such an important labor force needs to be taken care of. Eat, weren't you saying you were hungry? Ding Xiaoyi handed over the instant noodles he had prepared. To take care of this rare source of labor, he even added 2 braised eggs and a sausage. You're being way too weird. Can you change your style? Ding Xiaoyi was just making a casual remark. Unexpectedly, the big-headed monster actually did it. Then it transformed. It changed back to the appearance of that little girl. Only her hair still resembled her tentacles. But it looked much more comfortable this way. As the pungent, heart-wrenching broth and the golden, soft noodles were poured into the big-headed monster's mouth, The expression on the big-headed monster suddenly changed again. Perhaps he never imagined that the bowl of soup in his hand, which looked so unappealing, would produce such an astonishing taste when it touched the tip of his tongue. At that very moment, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly felt something approaching from behind. His heart tightened. He instantly became alert, quickly turning around. At a glance, I saw the big-headed monster had somehow appeared behind me. Its claws spread open, and its eyes fixed on Ding Xiaoyi, shining with golden light. Ding Xiaoyi was startled. This guy is going to ambush me. Looking at the outstretched claws, Ding Xiaoyi felt a chill rise in his heart. Just then, the big-headed monster suddenly took a step back. He pointed with his hand. Only then did Ding Xiaoyi see the gold neatly arranged on the ground beneath the big-headed monster's feet, forming unusual, complex characters. One more bowl. Ding Xiaoyi didn't expect the big-headed monster to like the old vinegar pickled vegetable beef noodles so much. I ended up making 10 bags for the big-head monster. It devoured them all in one bite. At that moment, a loud rumble came crashing in. The yellow springs, which had been calm, suddenly started to stir up wave after wave. Ding Xiaoyi quickly stood up. He hurried to the edge of the yellow springs, just thinking about the massive rumble from the platform. Perhaps it's the sound of waves stirred up by shadows. The sound of the waves. Ding Xiaoyi couldn't help but feel a sense of clarity rise within him. The sound of rushing water behind him was getting closer and closer. After Ding Xiaoyi dashed into the room, the first thought that crossed his mind was to get out of there quickly. He threw everything into the suitcase. Rumble, rumble. At this moment, the rumbling noise outside grew louder and louder. They had to prepare for the worst. But when he picked up the key and turned around, he saw the big-headed creature curled up in the corner of the room, trembling. Rumble. At this moment, the rumbling noise outside grew louder and louder. The whole table in the room shook violently as well. He turned back to look at the big-headed monster. For some reason, a strange emotion arose in Ding Xiaoyi's heart. A dazed and helpless expression. That silly, honest big face is just leaving him here. He was caught in an internal struggle. He's no saint, and besides, the big-headed freak once tried to eat him. Logically speaking, he was just a tool, nothing more. But when he picked up the key, he hesitated again. Looking at that idiot still clutching the iron pot. He stood there foolishly, soaked but still holding the pot, staring at me pitifully. Ding Xiaoyi's heart softened instantly. Looking at the big-headed creature staring at him pitifully, Ding Xiaoyi's heart softened instantly. He stuffed the key into his pocket, muttering curses under his breath, just like the big-headed creature's words. If you survive this time, you better be ready to work for me for the rest of your life. As he said this, Ding Xiaoyi quickly scanned the layout of the room. At this moment, his gaze landed on the large black box. An idea struck him. He swiftly stuffed the food, diary, and the messy pile of documents including the deed into the box. Then, he tore the old bed sheets into strips. One end tied around his waist, the other end secured to the trunk. Whether they survive will depend on their luck. After everything was ready, Ding Xiaoyi quickly walked up to Dada Guai. Call the police for me. That chest. The big-headed monster buried its head into the pot. At the same time, its tentacles wrapped tightly around the chest like an octopus. Meanwhile, it sternly ordered the big-headed monster, no matter what happens, you must hold on to this chest. Seeing the big-headed monster's confused gaze, Ding Xiaoyi sighed deeply in his heart. He patted the big-headed monster's grandma and said, "Hang in there. We will definitely survive." Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the entire house began to shake violently. Outside the window, a torrent of crazed beasts surged towards us. Hold on tight. With Ding Xiaoyi's roar, the doors and windows in front of us were instantly torn apart by a tremendous force. Boom. The cold and murky waters of the underworld instantly engulfed all of his helplessness. Glug glug. There was no buffer at all, nor any chance to adapt. With the surge of immense power, his entire body was involuntarily lifted by the impact. The piercing cold that enveloped his whole body quickly cleared his muddled thoughts. Slowly, he opened his eyes, looking at the murky flood before me. The chill of the underworld exceeded my expectations. This cold is not like the sharpness of ice, but penetrates through the skin, through the bone marrow, making your soul feel as if it stands still, unable to move. As I brushed my hand at my waist, in an instant, Ding Xiaoyi's heart skipped a beat. The sheet that was originally tied around his waist was missing. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He wanted to swim to the surface immediately. There was a skylight above the roof. Ding Xiaoyi shook his body. He reached out with both hands to grab onto something and swim upward as much as possible, wanting to see a little further ahead. It was all a yellowish chaos. At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly felt as if his palm had grabbed something. Amidst the confusion, he saw in front of him, stirred by the river of souls. The scene gradually became clearer, and at that moment, he saw it clearly. It was a pair of hands. But he had never seen such a perfect pair of hands. Ding Xiaoyi's eyes were dazed. It seemed that besides these hands, there was no room for anything else in her gaze. At that moment, the hands parted. The murky water of the yellow spring. Black hair danced. As a woman's face gradually became clear. Come over to me. The woman's voice is clear and melodious. It carries a kind of ethereal temptation. Even in the underworld, it can still be heard distinctly. It seems like a celestial sound. It is intoxicating. The beauty brushes against my face. Her hair cascades down. No longer concealed. The woman's face finally revealed. Yet that face, which should have been stunningly beautiful, was suddenly pushed to another extreme. In the eyes that should be enchanting, several flesh tumors were writhing. Thin black tentacles were probing out from the woman's nostrils and ears. The moment the woman opened her mouth, it revealed an independent eye hidden in her mouth. Firmly nailed to Ding Xiaoying. From heaven to hell. It's just a thought away. And from dream to nightmare. It only takes a scheme. The terrifying face before me suddenly jolts Ding Xiaoyi awake from her dreamy haze. Goo goo ga ga. As soon as he opened his mouth, a sour-smelling spring of yellow water flooded into his mouth and nose. At the same time, those exquisite hands, like iron clamps, gripped his throat tightly. Fresh flesh. The woman's voice was still ethereal and beautiful, in stark contrast to her hideously grotesque face. No matter how he struggles, it is destined to be in vain. He cannot shake the woman's hands at all. Goo goo, with a face full of bubbles. After spitting out a few big bubbles, Ding Xiaoyi felt his chest was about to explode. At the same time, his consciousness was beginning to blur. Just as he felt his awareness fading away, he remembered the purple bead on him. With his last bit of awareness, he pushed the purple bead toward the water gripping his neck. The woman's laughter suddenly came to a halt. A burst of purple light flickered between them. Purple flames instantly ignited on the woman. The murky waters of the yellow spring were stained with large patches of purple light under the burning of the purple fire. How could you have burning oil beads? Accompanied by a woman's sharp and tragic scream, the hands tightly gripping her throat suddenly pushed hard. They pushed Ding Xiaoyi away from her side. After breaking free from the woman's grasp, her hands kept struggling to climb upwards. Thanks to this purple bead, I saved my life again. Otherwise, with my own strength, it would have been impossible to break free from a woman's grasp. Following the position in my memory, I got closer to the skylight. Although the light above me wasn't strong, the fact that light was coming through indicated that the water surface wasn't very high. Suddenly, my ankle sank. A tremendous force yanked him downward. Ding Xiaoyi was caught off guard. He gripped the edge of the sunroof tightly, refusing to let go. At that moment, an ethereal voice whispered in his ear. A roar echoed, and Ding Xiaoyi looked down. His expression suddenly turned cold. He saw the woman tightly gripping his ankle with one hand. Under the immense force, he couldn't break free at all. Bubbles of varying sizes emerged from his nose. As the strength in his fingertips weakened, Ding Xiaoyi's hands gradually began to loosen. He wondered what it would feel like to die in the yellow springs. As his consciousness began to fade, suddenly he felt his body tighten. He saw thick tendrils stretching down from the surface, wrapping around him. Suddenly, a powerful force pulled me up. My body was forcibly yanked out of the water. No, this is mine. Mine. I struggled desperately against them. But unfortunately, he clearly wasn't the type to rely on brute strength. Facing a giant like that, struggling with others poses no threat at all. The big-headed monster quickly retracted its tentacles. It dragged Ding Xiaoyi out from the underworld. It opened its mouth and spewed out a foul, yellowish water. At that moment, a tentacle that had been coiling around itself suddenly ignited spontaneously. Boom! Under the purple flames. In an instant, the claw retracted violently. The big-headed monster holding the box on the water shuddered as if electrocuted. It turned out, the claw it had wrapped around touched the purple pearl on Ding Xiaoyi, called the Zhuoyu pearl by the woman. The intense pain made the big-headed monster turn pale. It wasn't just physical pain, but also a fear of the Zhuoyu pearl. However, what surprised him was that the big-headed monster, knowing that the Zhuoyu pearl on him would burn him, not only did not let go of himself, but kept reaching down with more tentacles. This result led to more and more tentacles igniting. What a fool! Ding Xiaoyi couldn't help but curse inwardly. But her opinion of the big head monster changed significantly. Ha ha ha. Seeing the constantly burning tentacles, the woman let out a sharp laugh. Her chubby features twisted into a mess for a moment, seeming quite pleased with herself. The thing that saves you will ultimately cost you your life. The woman's laughter was filled with pride. In his eyes, even if he obtained a corpse, it would still be a fresh corpse. The woman's laughter was filled with pride. In his eyes, even if it's a corpse, it would still be a fresh one. At that moment, the old man's words echoed in his mind. Live in the moment. Ding Xiaoyi's gaze suddenly sharpened. He hesitated no longer. Using his last bit of strength, he grabbed Zhuoyu Zhu from his arms. her gaze fixed on the jewel that had saved her life twice. A cold light suddenly flickered in her eyes. She scoffed inwardly, thinking, "You like this?" With a strong push of her palm, the jewel shimmered with enchanting purple light in the underworld. It was about to smash down on the woman's head. People die for wealth. Birds die for food. This is a common saying passed down among the people of China. This bead has saved him twice. From the woman's horrified tone, it's easy to tell. This bead is no ordinary treasure. That's why he didn't throw it away immediately. The woman also didn't expect Ding Xiaoye to drop such an important thing just like that. Caught off guard, the bead hit him in the cheek with a thud. This time the woman didn't even have time to scream. Her entire head exploded in the purple fire in an instant. Ding Xiaoye, who was dragged up, was vomiting violently. With each gasp, it felt like all her internal organs were twisted into a ball. In pain, she could only lie on the box, coughing continuously. It was only after she threw up all the gastric acid that Ding Xiaoye felt like she had come back to life. At this moment, he noticed the big-headed monster beside him. It was staring at the remaining tentacles of this guy. Ding Xiaoye's expression suddenly became a bit awkward. To save himself, this guy had at least gnawed off 2/3 of his tentacles. Although these tentacles could regrow. Seeing this guy's miserable state made him feel quite uncomfortable. "Actually, you don't have to save me. That way you would be free, wouldn't you?" Facing Ding Xiaoye's question, Big Head Monster was initially confused. Then it turned back into a little girl. With a pitiful expression, she said, looking at his silly, bewildered face. "Idiot." Xiao Yi laughed and scolded lightly, "Got it. I'll make you something delicious soon." Just as I was about to speak, suddenly, the surrounding Huangquan seemed to be rapidly flowing backward. On the originally dim water surface, the tree crowns that had been swallowed began to gradually re-emerge. Suddenly, Ding Xiaoye's smile froze on his face. He pulled Dato and said, "Hurry, hurry, hurry. Send them back. The tide is about to go out." As the water level gradually receded to its original position, hiss, this matter will cause a stir under the beams. As the faint light shone down, the ground seemed to be plated with gold. Large and small chunks of gold were scattered on the ground. Besides the gold, there were all kinds of strange and unusual things scattered below. A chaotic mess all over the place. Jackpot, jackpot. All of it is big loot. He saw a piece of coral. This coral stands a full meter tall. It has several fist-sized bulbs. They look like fruits. It is covered in layers of scale-like armor. The copper body is a vivid red and translucent. There isn't a speck of impurity to be seen. Even in reality, this thing would be worth a fortune. It's priceless. Baby. The harvest is so great. It's worth the big-headed monster. Let him help move this coral tree to the corner. Just after moving the coral tree, Ding Xiaoye's eyes suddenly brightened. He saw that there was actually something underneath the coral tree. What is this? The object in front looked like a bronze artifact. It was covered in patina. Only half of its head was exposed. The rest was still buried under the thick layer of gold sand. Ding Xiaoye called for Big Head Monster and asked him to dig it out. Big Head Monster manipulated his tentacles and pulled the bronze object from beneath the gold sand. As the bronze weapon gradually revealed its original appearance, Ding Xiaoye realized that it was a bronze dagger. Just as the big-headed monster was about to pick up the dagger, a sudden surge of black mist poured out along the blade. It was like a venomous snake, biting down hard on the big-headed monster's claw. The big-headed monster showed a look of pain, and its claw instantly released its grip. Nasal mucus. Ding Xiaoye stood to the side. Seeing a long cut left by the tentacles of the big-headed monster, he couldn't help but shiver. After thinking for a moment, Ding Xiaoye turned and walked to the box, took out the sausage from inside the box, and threw it far towards the dagger. He wants to confirm whether this dagger is like Shuyo Pig. It only targets psychic beings like big-headed monsters and meatballs. Then, the sausage fell from mid-air. This time, there was no secondary target, just sparks and noise. With a swoosh, the sausage was directly cut into tiny pieces the size of grains of rice. Oh my goodness. Seeing this, Ding Xiaoye's mouth twitched. He was secretly relieved that he didn't reach out to grab the dagger directly. Clearly, whether it's a psychic creature or a living person like him, they would both be attacked by the dagger. This made Ding Xiaoye feel secretly relieved, but at the same time, he also felt a bit troubled. Just as he was in a dilemma in his heart, the dim, lifeless woods in front of him rustled with the sound of grass brushing against each other. The source of the sound was getting closer. Ding Xiaoye silently took a step back. His expression remained calm. One hand was placed on his chest. Through the damp fabric, he felt the hostility in his arms. The tight tension in my heart has relaxed a little. This is my territory. I have absolute power here. As long as the visitor is a wise being, I don't need to worry about them being able to harm me. Kill, kill, kill. The grass in front is gently pushed aside. It's just that as the grass is pushed aside, coming out was actually a person. To be precise, an elderly farmer, holding a wooden staff and carrying a bamboo basket on his back. After stepping out of the bushes, his expression turned serious. The gaze swept up and down on Ding Xiaoyi. A person. A living person. While the other party was sizing him up, Ding Xiaoyi couldn't help but deeply scrutinize the old man in front of him. No, that's not right. This is not a living person. To be precise, this old man has a problem. Ding Xiaoyi keenly sensed that. This old man's outfit was really too strange. The young man has had quite a good harvest. All good stuff. The old man's gaze quickly shifted from Ding Xiaoyi to the yard. His eyes squinted into slits. Beneath his white-fringed eyelashes, golden hair occasionally flickered. Everything in this yard seems significant or not, in one's own eyes. But what is actually inside? I have no idea at all. Yet the old man took a glance and clearly recognized these items. May I ask how to address you, old man? Why not come in and have a seat? Ding Xiaoyi wore a smile on his face. He wanted to invite the old man in. As long as the other party stepped into his territory, things would be easier to handle. In response to Ding Xiaoyi's invitation, the old man waved his hand. No, no. You have so many things inside. What did I throw in there? I can't explain it clearly. The old man said. His eyes involuntarily looked at the bronze dagger in front of Ding Xiaoyi's feet. He laughed. This dagger is nice. Why not sell it to me? Ding Xiaoyi looked at the bronze dagger in front of him. A moment of distraction. His sharp mind quickly caught on. This old man referred to this dagger as a sword. A bronze sword, not a dagger. This means the old man recognized, or at least knew some information about the bronze sword. Why aren't you selling it? Seeing Ding Xiaoyi not speaking, the old man looked very disappointed. Why aren't you selling? Are you joking? I'm currently worried about this sword. But selling is one thing. The question is how to sell it. Selling it for cash. Isn't that just looking for trouble? Thinking about this, Ding Xiaoyi spun around smoothly. The smile on his face became even brighter. Old man, name your price. If it's right, I won't marry anyone else but you, old man. Obviously, he also caught Ding Xiaoyi's hidden meaning. The corner of his mouth twitched, still maintaining a kind and gentle smile. Oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. What do you want? This is the wisdom that comes with age. With one sentence, he deflected Ding Xiaoyi's words. Sir, when you put it like that, it makes it hard for me too. You're asking for a lot. I won't charge you anymore. Just help me organize these things. Let's talk about what these are. Come on. Just tell me what they're for. Consider it a way to broaden my horizons. You, sir, clearly command great respect. Well-informed and knowledgeable. Just casually point out a few things for me. That would be enough for the kid to benefit endlessly. In the face of Ding Xiaoyi's compliments, even though the old man knew very well this was a sugar-coated bullet, he still unconsciously showed a look of enjoyment on his face. It's rare to see you so eager to learn, the old man said at this point. After a moment of silence, I casually pulled out a bronze mirror from the backpack. I tossed it to Ding Xiaoyu. The waters of the underworld are too deep. There are some things I might not have seen either. This is a ghost-reflecting mirror. If a ghost or monster looks into it, you will be able to tell. If it is a fierce weapon, it will definitely give you a warning. If it is in a state of chaos, it indicates that this item is extraordinary. You must not handle it recklessly. You can let me discern it. I will come here once every 7 days. Because I have already received the mirror. He had such a radiant smile on his face. To him, this mirror was a real treasure. He carefully put the mirror away. Xuanji pretended to be troubled and said, Sir, you might need to come in and get this sword yourself. I just picked it up earlier. Almost got hacked to death. If you had taken it, you'd already be dead by now. The old man sneered. He mercilessly exposed Ding Xiaoyi's words. With a flick of his hand, the bronze sword on the ground seemed to react to some kind of stimulus, emitting a sharp, piercing hum. Ding Xiaoyi's expression changed slightly. He kept stepping back. This sword, already reeking of copper, gave him an immense sense of crisis, even more terrifying than the concept he faced in the underworld. It was stifling. It was the aura of murderous intent. At that moment, the bronze sword on the ground shot up with a whoosh. In the end, it landed steadily in the old man's palm. Looking at the bronze sword in his hand, the wrinkles on the old man's face deepened slightly. His expression was serious. He sighed, reflecting on how many heroes had been buried in this yellow spring, and how much resentment could be eased. As he spoke, his fingertips gently wiped the rust off the sword. The patina fades, revealing a hint of fluorescence, like a meteor falling along the sword's wind, leaving a trace of silvery cold light on the blade. The old man stows the bronze sword in the bamboo basket behind him, waving his hand. It's as if he is bidding farewell to Ding Xiaoyi. His figure disappears into the thicket. In the distance, Ding Xiaoyi could still hear the old man's loud and powerful singing voice. The Yangtze River flows eastward. Waves wash away the heroes. How many outstanding figures are there in the underworld? Even in death, they still dare to claim to be fierce. The singing was loud and full of life, majestic and grand. Ding Xiaoyi couldn't help but feel a surge of heat in his heart. He must have been one of the top figures back then. After a moment of contemplation, Ding Xiaoyi quietly took out the bronze mirror left to him by the old man. This bronze mirror could naturally not compare with that bronze sword. One could guess with their little toe how powerful that bronze sword was. But no matter how good something is, if you can't control it, it's just a hot potato. By comparison, this demon-revealing mirror seems more reliable. It actually helps me more. Thinking of this, Ding Xiaoyi glanced at the big-headed monster peeking out from the side. Looking at the big-headed monster nearby, Ding Xiaoyi directly pointed the mirror at the big-headed monster. The big-headed brute was born in a secluded place in the underworld, transformed by the resentment of the corpses, addicted to gluttony, timid and suspicious, good at illusions, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. A few beatings will make it obedient. Learn about the origins of the big-headed monster from the bronze mirror. Later on, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly gained a deeper understanding of the big-headed monster. But I can't fully agree with what the demon-revealing mirror said. Because just a moment ago, this timid and suspicious guy took a huge risk and pulled himself out from the underworld, it seems. So, what you said can't be taken entirely as truth. The information the bronze mirror gave was limited to those fixed impressions. So your name is Datu a man, huh? Then I'll call you Man from now on, okay? He said. Then he touched the head of the big eel. Ding Xiaoyi immediately pointed the bronze mirror in his hand at the coral tree beside him. This coral tree was too eye-catching. Yomu Lingshan grows 900 zhang deep under the Yellow Springs. The mountain stream can absorb the remnant souls of ghosts. It dissolves their souls, but leaves their will. Those who consume it may gain its power. Thus, it is called the Ancient Spirit Mountain. It has always been guarded by mysterious, fierce spirits and monsters. The sea is risky. Don't risk your life for nothing. Ancient Spirit Mountain. Yomu Spirit Mountain. These two titles sound anything but ordinary. Ding Xiaoyi kept pondering the meaning of the bronze mirror earlier. It seems that the prisoners on the coral can devour the remnants of demons and ghosts. Whoever eats them will gain the powers of those demons and ghosts. Hiss. Is there really such a good thing? I wonder if the spirit creatures in reality are the same. If that's really the case. To me, this coral is a priceless treasure. Ding Xiaoyi became more and more excited as he thought about it. He carefully counted again the number of Ryukyu. Not more, not less. Just right for a deal. In other words, you can gain the abilities of 7 spiritual creatures by relying on the 7 orbs above. Of course, the premise is that you first have a way to catch those spiritual creatures. Man, what are you looking at? At this moment, he noticed the big-headed creature's eyes sneaking around. It seemed to be deliberately searching. Following Man's gaze, he saw a black ball of flesh below. Ding Xiaoyi watched the rolling meatball. He was just about to cover it up with Big Head. Then he saw Big Head Monster's eyes suddenly light up. It didn't even give him a chance to react. It leaped from the rooftop, pouncing down, with its gaping mouth wide open to swallow it. Unfortunately, although Big Head Monster was fast, it was still much too slow for Ding Xiaoyi. It's not that my speed is faster than Big Head's. It's that Big Head seems to have forgotten whose territory this is. Shut up. With Ding Xiaoyi's command, Big Head, still in midair, couldn't help but shut his big mouth. All he could do was face the meatball in front of him, and slam headfirst into it. Bang. It looks like just a black mass of flesh. But it's making a sound like metal colliding. As if it's not flesh but a solid iron ball. The mass of flesh is still striking Big Head. Ding Xiaoyi randomly points, making it stop attacking too. Looking at Big Head's dejected expression, Ding Xiaoyi couldn't help but shout in frustration. This is not edible. Bring him over here. He picked up the mirror and aimed it at the meatball-like creature. Taifuyu. So the meatball was called Taifuyu. The name actually suits him quite well. It mimics well. Loves sweets, body like iron. Moves gracefully. Hands not suited for killing. Very curious. Has a photographic memory. Capable of swallowing and storing objects. Ding Xiaoyi read the description of Zhao Yujing. His eyes lit up instantly. This guy has the ability to swallow and store objects. That's quite a useful ability. For a moment, Ding Xiaoyi became even fonder of the meatball in front of him. At that moment, the tree tumors on the coral seemed to sense something. One by one, they grew sharp teeth like monsters. The one at the front opened its enormous mouth wide, wanting to swallow the meatball whole. At this moment, the flesh ball began to swell and grow larger. Ding Xiaoyi, confused and wary, retreated behind the big-headed monster. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The flesh ball shot up from the ground. It rose. 2 big-headed monsters appeared in front of Ding Xiaoyi. Their expressions were blank, and the severed limbs dangled from their bodies. Even the red mark left on the forehead by the big-headed monster's recent impact is exactly the same. Impressive. It's simply a master of disguise. But which one is the real big-headed barbarian? Right. At the new residence of Chaimu, I hold absolute authority. I actually forgot about this. So I pointed to the 2 large head eels. Iron float. Return to your original form. As the meatball muscles wriggled down, a 5 or 6-year-old boy came out. Ding Xiaoyi picked up the iron float and was about to send it into the tree's mouth. Halfway through, he hesitated. I can't bear to do this to such a cute little child. Although I know this is just his avatar, I still can't bring myself to do it. At this moment, I recalled Zhao Yojing's introduction. Good at defense, not at killing. Forget it. From today onward, you will stay here. Unless I command it. You are not to harm anyone proactively. You are not to leave the yard even a step. To eliminate potential dangers. Ding Xiaoyi gave a new command to Roly-Poly in an authoritative tone. Actually, Roly-Poly's abilities are far more practical than what he shows. His body is as tough as steel. Yet he can transform into any shape. If he can be tamed, he would become the greatest asset by his side. But the key is that he must be tamed first. The room is tidied up. After taking a look at the time, Ding Xiaoyi decided to head back to reality first. You two keep an eye on the house. I'll come back and bring you some good food. When Ding Xiaoyi returned to the hotel, it was already noon outside. After checking out of the room, I randomly found a restaurant. I simply had a bowl of noodles. At that moment, a news report was playing on the restaurant's TV. Breaking news. Thanks to the relentless efforts of the union detectives, they finally apprehended the suspects involved in multiple robbery cases in the city. They have been brought to justice. Hey, they finally caught them. This kind of scum deserves to die. People at the restaurant inevitably started discussing it over their meal. Ding Xiaoyi just kept his head down, eating his noodles. He didn't pay any attention to the news reports, because he knew very well that the robber was already dead. Meanwhile, in an inconspicuous corner outside the shop, two people were observing Ding Xiaoyi. He's Ding Xiaoyi. Doesn't seem all that special. According to the surveillance footage at the time, he was the only one who entered that alley. And he walked out safely. So he must be involved in this. Even so, Lading, are you sure we need to use that thing for this case? There are paranormal entities in human settlements. The nature of the event is already very serious. Even if it's just an evil spirit, it has risen. Follow it. Ding Xiaoyi, having just finished his meal, paid the bill. He had no idea he had already been targeted. After hurriedly eating, Ding Xiaoyi took the hover car to East Street. Following the location information on his phone, he arrived at 121 Yima Street. The dark red iron gate led to a bungalow courtyard. After ringing the doorbell, he faintly heard someone moving behind the door. Who is it? There was a voice inquiring from behind the door. After waiting for a while, the dark red door was finally pulled open. An old lady dressed in a black linen robe opened the door slightly. Through the gap, it was hard to discern the old woman's specific expression. May I ask what you need? Ding Xiaoyi smiled and glanced at the phone in her hand. Show the information above to the old lady. I called yesterday to rent the apartment. Hello. Young man. Please come in. The old lady smiled kindly. She opened the door. She made way for Ding Xiaoyi to enter. As soon as he stepped through the door, a refreshing breeze greeted him. It blew away the heat that Ding Xiaoyi had brought in with him. He scanned the surroundings. It was a two-story house. A vintage building. Under the shade of the trees, there were stone-carved tables and chairs, arranged with great care. It gives off an ancient and timeless feel. Please sit. The old lady gestured for Ding Xiaoyi to take a seat. She then poured a cup of hot tea for Ding Xiaoyi. All right. Thank you, Grandma. How should I address you? Receiving the tea with both hands, Ding Xiaoyi softly asked. Just call me Grandma Zhang. Grandma Zhang said with a reserved smile. Then you can call me Xiao Yi. The rent here is 2,000 alliance coins per month. I can only charge you 1,000. The condition is that you must help me take good care of this place. I don't want to see the furniture in the room gathering dust. I also don't want to see cobwebs in the corners. If you are willing, we can sign the contract. I am getting older, and my health is not good. In the future, I will need to live in a nursing home. This is the place where I grew up. It is also my only home. You are truly a generous elder. I think I will take good care of this house until you recover and return home. His response satisfied Madame Zhang. With a clear gaze, she said, then let's pay half a year's rent first. On Ding Xiaoyi's first night in the old house, he entered the room. He opened the door to the guest room on the side. The room in front of him was also furnished with wooden furniture. Ding Xiaoyi placed his palm on the headboard. A deep muffled sound echoed. Solid wood furniture truly is different. Speaking of which, this 1,000 a month in alliance coins makes this environment feel almost like it's free. At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi began to doubt how Grandma Zhang could bear to rent the house to her like this. Doesn't she worry that I might secretly sell off the furniture in the house? Forget it, I won't think about it. I'll just sleep for now. I'm feeling more and more drowsy. I lay down on the bed. And then I fell into a daze and slept. With my eyes closed, I don't know how long I slept. Suddenly, there was a sharp sound. Ding Xiaoyi's closed eyelids twitched uneasily. Immediately, the sound of footsteps gradually became clearer. They grew faster and faster. Although Ding Xiaoyi was already asleep, his ears twitched slightly with the sound. His heart felt as if an invisible hand had suddenly squeezed it tight. No way, the familiar sound made Ding Xiaoyi suspect he was hallucinating. Could it be that every time he returns from the underworld, he encounters something like this? Just as Ding Xiaoyi began to doubt the sound he had just heard. Yeah. The wooden door in front of him slowly creaked open, accompanied by a faint light shining through the crack, casting a stretched shadow of a pair of shoes on the floor. Suddenly, Ding Xiaoyi inhaled sharply, feeling an urge to curse out loud. This damn thing just won't end, huh? Let's just forget about last time. We're all just passing by each other. Doesn't matter if you're a newcomer or not. I was scared out of my wits too. I almost died at the hands of that robber. And now you're back again. Ding Xiaoyi pressed hard on his chest. Fury silently pulls up his blanket, covering his head, leaving a gap to peek outside. He is not a coward. This time, the experience in the underworld was too rich. Almost drowned by that woman. In the underworld, anything that comes out is better than these shoes. Even if it's from Linglong biology. Aren't they just a pair of shoes? At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi's grandmother's gaze caught sight of the bright red high heels outside the door. They gently peeked into the room. The shoe surface, shining like a mirror, was still very eye-catching in the dim light. As the shoes gradually drew closer, a cold glint flashed in Ding Xiaoyi's eyes. He silently counted the distance between himself and the shoes. 5 steps, 4 steps. The bright red high heels became lighter with each step. It was as if she was walking on tiptoe. 3 steps, thud. Ding Xiaoyi swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He only felt a dryness in his throat. But the shoes approaching closer made his heart race uncontrollably. 2 steps. At that moment, the shoes suddenly stopped right in front of Ding Xiaoyi. At the moment he watched the shoes halt, Ding Xiaoyi's tensed muscles felt like a gun barrel about to explode. He raised the blanket in his hands and lunged forward. The large quilt covered the shoes. Even these high heels didn't expect Ding Xiaoyi to throw herself onto him. The quilt kept rising and falling. Those high heels began to struggle violently. Is this never going to end? But how could Ding Xiaoyi give him a chance to escape? With both hands, she grabbed the chair by the dressing table. The chair was made of solid wood. It weighed at least 5 or 6 pounds. Ding Xiaoyi lifted it above his head with both hands. He brought it down hard. There was a loud crash. The chair was smashed apart. With the sound of splintering, the previously bustling bedding fell silent. This is the end. Looking at the calm blanket in front of him, Ding Xiaoyi felt an indescribable sensation in his heart. A psychic creature was killed by him with a bench. This seems a bit far-fetched. He quietly lifted a corner of the blanket. After Ding Xiaoyi polished it off, his face suddenly darkened with a heavy gloom. His shoes were missing. Alright, still. When Ding Xiaoyi was perplexed, suddenly felt a bone-chilling coldness on his feet. He looked down and saw that he had unknowingly slipped on those bright red shoes. In the courtyard, the cool breeze brushed against Lading's cheeks. As he looked at the young man lying on the bed in the room, there was a flicker of surprise on Reading's face. He seemed astonished by the boldness of the young man before him. His pale left eye looked through reality and directly into Ding Xiaoyi's mind. When he saw Ding Xiaoyi take the initiative with a blanket and stool, Reading was certain. Ding Xiaoyi was definitely involved in this matter. He was just inwardly surprised by such a young man. How does one have such delicate thoughts and extraordinary courage? Reading. It has already been 2 hours. Beside him, as a companion, Wang Jiaoyang looked at the time on his watch. He couldn't help but remind Reading. At the same time, Wang Jiaoyang's gaze kept drifting towards Reading's back. Long, thin tentacles moved aimlessly in the air. A creature with a black-headed, strange face was coiled around Reading's shoulder. The monster's gaze was silently fixed on Ding Xiaoyi. It let out a strange chanting sound, as if some unique melody in the sound was evoking terrible thoughts within, and desires hidden deep inside. This guy's name. Evil Owl. Parasite. An ancient white jade comb of high quality and strong abilities, nightmare mind control hypnosis. Lading heard Wang Jiaoyang's shout. From the corner of his eye, he glanced at the digital watch on his wrist. The countdown on it had already started flashing a red warning light. Seeing this, Wang Jiaoyang quickly opened the black box beside him. Ding ding ding. After swiftly entering the password and completing the fingerprint verification, the metal box emitted a cold synthetic voice. Junior Exorcist verified. Seal the ice surface. The box slowly opens. Inside the box, a white jade comb is floating in the river. The Lushao wrapped around Reading's shoulder senses it's about to be summoned back. Instead of letting go of Lei Bing, it speeds up the process of absorbing energy. Or I'll destroy your host. Realizing that the evil creature was resisting the recall, Wang Jiaoyang coldly threatened. Once a psychic creature loses its host, it will immediately vanish without a trace. Faced with Wang Jiaoyang's threat, the evil creature, though reluctant, still pulled its blood-stained claw away from Lei Bing's shoulder. It then transformed into a wisp of dark light. He dashed into the box in a flash. Wang Jiaoyang quickly closed the mechanism box. After seeing the jade book completely hidden in the deepest part of the box, he finally let out a heavy sigh. He plopped down onto the ground. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans kept rolling down his forehead. He felt even more exhausted than the nearby Reading. Are you okay? Reading stepped forward. His large, heavy hand gently patted Wang Jiaoyang on the shoulder. He pulled him up, comforting him. What is this kid's situation, anyway? Wang Jiaoyang tried hard to conceal his trembling shoulders. He asked Reading. It's hard to say. It's related, but not directly related. I can confirm. He's not the one we're looking for. Facing those high heels, it's no longer just pure fear. It's more like resistance. Clearly, it's not the first time seeing those shoes. Should we take it back first? Wang Jiaoyang suggested. But this suggestion was rejected by Reading. No. Let's head back first. We'll observe for a while before making a decision. Let's go. The two of them stepped on the stones beside them and jumped up. He leaped over a 2-meter-high wall. In an instant, he disappeared into the night. On this sleepless night, in a certain congressman's office, a file regarding Ding Xiaoyi lay on the desk. It was the official document of his grave. A bespectacled secretary walked in from outside and quietly spoke to the middle-aged man standing by the curtain, smoking. Chairman Pan. This man's background is very clear. He is the son of the Ding family, from a respectable family. You also know old Mr. Ding's temperament. His grandson would never do anything improper. Letting him stay in Mama's courtyard is quite safe. Smoke drifting in the air. This middle-aged man, referred to as senator by his secretary. When he heard the words, Old Master Ding, his expression showed a hint of melancholy. He was, of course, well aware of the old master's character. If it weren't for him supporting Ding's Pharmaceuticals all these years, Ding's Pharmaceuticals would have collapsed long ago. He is one of the few people he truly respects. Those banks and pharmaceutical companies are a bunch of short-sighted people. They have been supported by the Ding family for so many years. Even if they are a pack of wolves and tigers, now they are just like stray dogs and chickens. Without the Ding family, you'll see that it won't be long before they start crying. Speaking of this, the middle-aged man thought for a moment. He said, pay attention to this. If the child is in any trouble, help if you can. Consider it a thank you for the old man's contributions to our district over the years. Ding Xiaoyi was unaware that on such a night, his information had already appeared on the desk of an important figure. Not even aware that he was already at the center of a huge vortex, and had become a key focus of the Exorcist Guild. Da-da-da. On the dimly lit road, footsteps sharp, heart racing, Ding Xiaoyi stared blankly ahead. Not knowing how long he'd been walking, he knows he is very tired. Extremely. From the beginning, he was in so much pain that he wished for death. Now he is numb. His hollow gaze stares ahead. His legs continue to embrace, refusing to obey. With every step he takes, the intense pain underfoot feels like walking barefoot on glass shards. Listen carefully. You can still hear the cracking sound. That's the sound of your own bones shattering. You can't even tell if you are a living person or a corpse. Until, on the desolate street, under a dim halogen light, your shadow is stretched into the darkness. At this moment, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly noticed a vague figure in the shadow ahead of him was staring at him. Ding Xiaoyi's eyes lit up with hope. He couldn't help but walk toward the figure. Don't go, help me. The distance grew shorter. Ding Xiaoyi smelled a strong burnt odor in the air. This smell was very familiar. Ding Xiaoyi suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. He wanted to retreat, but he found his feet moving forward against his will. Just then, the figure in front gradually turned around. The shocking shadow waves were like two bottomless abysses stared back at him, seeking to swallow him whole. Ding Xiaoyi felt a tightness in his chest. It was him. Impossible. He couldn't have. The new area, warehouse number 2. The hoarse voice roared from deep within the man's chest. What Ding Xiaoyi didn't understand for a moment was what this warehouse meant. The man grabbed Ding Xiaoyi's shoulders with both hands. Manhwa's cheek was nearly pressed against his own. Nervous. Warehouse number 2. As he spoke, the man's head suddenly split open. A surge of purple flames erupted from the crack. In an instant, it swallowed him whole. Ah! Ding Xiaoyi struggled with both hands. Her body suddenly sat up from the bed. Huff, huff, huff. Sweat droplets dripped down her temples like rain. It was a dream. She looked at her perfectly intact feet. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. If it's a dream, then it's too real. He can still clearly remember every detail from the dream. But if it's not a dream, then what is it? Warehouse number 2, New District. At this moment, he recalled the robber's final shout at him. Warehouse number 2 in the New District. Ding Xiaoyi muttered softly, quietly pondering the meaning of those words. He took out his phone and searched for information about the warehouses in the New District. After a thorough search, Ding Xiaoyi decided to check out the truth of this warehouse. There's something off about this dream. It's so real. It's like it's engraved in my bones. But of course, I can't sneak in like a thief. I need a legitimate reason. So, Ding Xiaoyi picked up his phone. He ordered a batch of high-energy synthetic batteries from nearby Juxi City. After placing the order, Ding Xiaoyi was no longer sleepy. Look at the time. It's still early. After a simple wash, he changed clothes and got ready to head to the dock. Today, he needs to retrieve the engine. Buzz buzz bang. As Ding Xiaoyi shut the front door, with a sound, the large courtyard suddenly fell silent again. Tap. At that moment, a pair of bright red shoes quietly peeked out from under the rocking chair. Then they stepped out, one by one. With loud footsteps, they disappeared into the darkness, heading to the dock in S City. Ding Xiaoyi watched the explorer robot that had just been moved out from the container. The black metal shell gives a sense of rigor and solemnity under the dim light. Unfortunately, it's too badly damaged. But it's precisely because it's so damaged that I could get it at a lower price. While there's still time, Ding Xiaoyi plans to go buy some items. Just as I turned around, A dark figure collided head-on with me, almost knocking me over. Luckily, the other person reacted quickly. They grabbed Ding Xiaoyi's arm and pulled Ding Xiaoyi up. Sorry. Apologies. Without waiting for Ding Xiaoyi to speak, the other party lowered his head and hurriedly left from the side. Seeing this, Ding Xiaoyi's first reaction was to reach for his wallet. After confirming that the money in his wallet had not been stolen, he noticed the man's broad back. After confirming that there were no lost items, he didn't take it to heart. Out of the supermarket, Ding Xiaoyi pushed a cart full of goods out. As she walked, she double-checked her shopping list. After buying a whole bunch of things, she had to rent an electric smart cart from the supermarket. And also get the stuff back home. Though it's electric and smart, the things she just bought, the weight seems to be a bit over the limit. To the extent that on some slopes, I have to push it forward myself. This made Ding Xiaoyi more eager to tame the meatball. If I can tame the meatball by my side, its ability to consume and store items would bring me great convenience. Moreover, last night's nightmare brought me an inexplicable sense of crisis. Like the scene in last night's dream, the helplessness of facing the exquisite creature. He didn't want to experience it again. This was also the reason he was eager to subdue the meatball. He placed everything in the yard and closed the gate tightly. He took out the thick, large black iron key. Fumbling over the words on the key, Ding Xiaoyi disappeared into the yard with a big bag and small bags. Just like that, she vanished into thin air, accompanied by the darkness that rushed towards her. The same sensation of weightlessness hit her again. After sitting by the bed and adapting for a while, Ding Xiaoyi slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw upon opening her eyes was still that mirror. Ding Xiaoyi initially didn't pay much attention. He had become accustomed to this mirror. But this time, when he looked at the mirror, he noticed that his reflection seemed a bit off. What is this? There was something black wrapped around his neck in the mirror. It looked like a loach. Those eyes, seemingly like rubies, were also staring at the mirror in front of him. What is this? Ding Xiaoyi looked at the creature in the mirror that resembled a loach. It seemed that this thing sensed that Ding Xiaoyi had discovered it. The shadow quickly jumped down from his neck, transforming into a wisp of black smoke, trying to escape. Stop! The shadow's speed is very fast. With a whoosh, it quickly reached the door. So fast it caught me off guard. If it were somewhere else, I might not have reacted in time. This thing would have escaped. But here, it's different. This is my territory. As Ding Xiaoyi's shout just fell, the shadow slammed into an invisible barrier. Its body suddenly stiffened in midair. Then it heavily crashed to the ground. Big head. Ding Xiaoyi changed into a stunning outfit, and Big Head popped his head out. It seems to be waiting for Ding Xiaoying's instruction to take this outside. After Ding Xiaoyi came out, he brought the mirror that reveals monsters in the room with him. He aimed it at the salty fish monster in front of him first. The light from the mirror shone on the salty fish monster. It emitted a sound that only Ding Xiaoyi could hear. Avoiding light dolphin. Hernia concealment. Sheen fish. Bright sunlight. A poisonous sting hidden in its mouth. Skin without scales. Its flesh is extremely tender. Add chopped green onions, garlic, chili in hot oil. Stir-fried with a big fire. Listening to Tongjing, it feels increasingly off. Ding Xiaoyi couldn't help but look strange. Suddenly, he felt he had been cheated. He actually traded a precious sword for this thing. Is it a cookbook? Ding Xiaoyi examined the salted fish monster up and down. He recalled all his experiences in reality this time. Whether it was Granny Zhang, or the old man selling wontons, or even every person he encountered himself. At that moment, he suddenly remembered someone. There was no clear face, only a tall figure from behind. This person nearly knocked him off his feet at the dock. Among the many people he had interacted with, only this person has a direct connection with oneself. Can you talk? Ding Xiaoyi put away the bronze mirror and pressed on. The salted fish monster shook its head. It was already terrified of the big-headed monster beside it. I ask. You must answer me. The real answer. You just need to nod and shake your head. The salted fish monster looked confused, but still tried hard to cooperate. Did you climb on me at the dock today? Right? The salted fish monster wanted to shake its head, but at that moment, an irresistible force quietly approached. It was like something suddenly took control of his body. It made him nod his head. It really was him. The answer was expected. He continued to ask. What is he going to do, kill me? The salted fish monster shook its head. After receiving this response, Ding Xiaoyi let out a long sigh of relief. But at this moment, the salted fish monster in front of him suddenly nodded again. What does that mean? Shaking his head and nodding? He couldn't believe the salted fish monster in front of him dared to mess with him. Ding Xiaoyi's expression turned gloomy as a sense of unease rose. I have value to be utilized. Or rather, he wants to gain something from me. The salted fish monster wants to shake its head, but its head keeps nodding up and down. And then kill me. To silence me, the salted fish monster's eyes widen. It lets out a strange shriek. But its struggle seems so feeble in front of Ding Xiaoyi's dog handle. Ding Xiaoyi watched him struggling and nodded in satisfaction, confirming all his suspicions. A sudden chill surged through his heart. What on earth had he done to deserve being killed? Thinking it over, Ding Xiaoyi thought of those bright red high heels. Could it really be those shoes coming for revenge? Do you recognize a pair of bright red high heels? The salted fish monster was momentarily confused. This time he did not resist, because he truly did not recognize them. Seeing this, Ding Xiaoyi inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed like it was good as long as it wasn't related to those high heels. The last question. Do you mind turning into a ball, salted fish monster? Ball. Obviously, this salted fish monster didn't understand what Ding Xiaoyi meant. But that's okay. Ding Xiaoyi has always been bold in making conjectures. Careful with Shi Jian. So then, before long, this salted fish monster, still confused, was soon sent by Big Head to the foot of Wuling Mountain. The salted fish monster seems to sense the dangerous atmosphere around. It begins to emit sharp, piercing cries. It struggles wildly. The coral tree in front is like a wolf that has caught the scent of blood. Blood-colored smoke billows out from the coral. It quickly engulfs the salted fish monster. The salted fish monster's screams abruptly stop. Its body is gradually disintegrated within the smoke. Finally disappeared completely in front of Ding Xiaoyi. With the disappearance of the salted fish monster, the smoke and clouds retracted back along the coral. A cage that absorbed red light was soon separated out. Ding Xiaoyi looked at his hand. This unfamiliar object in his hand suddenly surged with emotion. A spherical lump that fell from the ancient spirit mountain. After it fell, the hard outer shell shatters at the slightest touch. After it breaks, inside there is only this egg-shaped bead that looks about the size of a quail's egg. You can see that inside, there are red lights flickering. It's very light. If you don't pay attention to its weight, it's almost unnoticeable. It feels cold and icy. It's more like ice cubes just taken out of the freezer. How do you eat this thing? Should I eat it? What kind of effect will it have on me if I do? Will it turn me into a monster? A series of confusions appeared in Ding Xiaoyi's mind. After all, I'm still a perfectly healthy living person, free to enjoy the sunshine. But if I don't eat, thinking about what happened today, and all those strange things that happened before, it's no different than someone holding a knife to my throat. If I hadn't returned from the underworld, you might not even know what happened until the end. In the end, Ding Xiaoyi decided to take a gamble. Living is the greatest significance. Thinking of this, Ding Xiaoyi took a deep breath, as if he had made a certain resolution. He opened his mouth and swallowed the 4-ball in his hand. The cold texture didn't have the strange taste I was worried about. On the contrary, after swallowing it, a faint sweetness welled up from under my tongue. Ding Xiaoyi waited silently. Huff huff. Without any warning, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly felt a violent surge in his abdomen, like an earthquake. Thousands of troops and horses converged into a torrent in his abdomen, starting the impact towards the intestines leading outside. Hiss. At the same time, in a dark basement somewhere in reality, a sudden scream echoed from inside the door. Several figures, both men and women, quickly gathered around. Third brother. What happened? They saw one of the men lying on the ground. His limbs were twitching continuously, and even his facial features were contorted. It's Lao San. Several people quickly rushed forward upon seeing this. But when they placed their hands on the man, the expressions of a few changed instantly. They exchanged a glance, then looked at the man and woman sitting to the side, dying in the shadows. The figure hidden under the dark cloak paused for a moment before speaking in a hoarse voice. Dispose of them. The cold voice carried no trace of emotion. It seems more like an unquestionable fate. The third one's death. Perhaps someone shattered his spirit gate. Could it be the Spiritling Guild? A few people around him, following his words, shifted their gaze to the front, towards the leader cloaked in black, obviously exposed to the Spiritling Guild sight. It could be a very dangerous task. Lao Lu, go and bring Ding Xiaoyi back. If you can't, bring the body back. That works too. The voice from the cloak's shadow always made it impossible to tell his emotions. Being called out, Lao Lu hurriedly placed one hand on his chest, making an effort to bow. Kai Muxin bowed. Ah, that feels good. Stretching a bit. After realizing something, I feel much lighter. Ding Xiaoyi slowly raises his hands. Under his gaze, his palms gradually become transparent, until they completely disappear. Invisibility. After eating that egg, it didn't turn out as I expected, and transform me into a monster. Instead, it enhanced my physique. I now feel like I have endless strength. The most important thing is, I emerged from that egg, obtained the ability to become invisible like a salted fish monster. About 5 minutes later, Ding Xiaoyi's hands reappeared. Only 5 minutes. He mentally confirmed the time. 5 minutes was already the limit of what he could do. Beyond this time, his invisibility would be exposed. Ding Xiaoyi turned to look at the mirror in the corner. He had never understood why there was a mirror here. In the view of the Huaxia people, a mirror should not face the bed. But today's events gave him a new understanding of this mirror. He recalled the time when the big-headed monster used illusion to transform into a little girl behind him. Ding Xiaoyi's heart stirred, trying to become invisible in front of the mirror. Invisibility ability activated. But soon, Ding Xiaoyi discovered that in front of the mirror, he seemed to be facing an inexplicable resistance. An invisible force instantly suppressed his invisibility ability. The harder he tried to resist, the more powerful the forces of suppression are. It really is like that. He wasn't wrong about that. The old man never does useless work. This mirror is definitely not an ordinary mirror. It possesses the ability to suppress the abilities of Linglong creatures. This mirror is a safeguard that the old man left for himself. But speaking of which, the old man set up a mirror here. Could it be that he also experienced being plotted against? Thinking of this, Ding Xiaoyi's thoughts became much heavier. Even though the old man is no longer around, the thought that his loved ones were subjected to some kind of coercion still made him feel very uncomfortable. At this moment, he turned to look at the diary on the table. When Ding Xiaoyi looked at the diary, he suddenly noticed that the diary was already open. Ding Xiaoyi picked up the diary and read it carefully. Alliance Year 99, September 1st. A lot has happened recently. Because I've gone in and out of that mysterious place too many times, a lot of strange things have started to appear around me. Today's events are very serious. While Xiao Yi was watching TV, I saw a human head hiding behind him. When Xiao Yi turned around, he was scared to tears by the head. I hurriedly picked up the head and tricked him into thinking it was just a prank. But I hope this doesn't happen again. Seeing the contents of the diary, Yin Xiaoyi stood there in a daze for quite a while. He still clearly remembered this incident. It seemed that it was from this day on. The old man often started making all kinds of boring jokes with him. Now that I think about it, Ding Xiaoyi couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. I wonder how many of those jokes were actually the old man teasing him. Or rather, some jokes carry a deadly danger within themselves. He continued reading. On the morning of December 12, 1999, the heads of several banks came to meet with me. They hoped to invest in Ding's pharmaceutical factory, though it wasn't stated outright. It was clear that these guys were no longer satisfied with the benefits of mere hospitality. Although the conditions they offered were tempting, I still refused them. Seeing the gloomy expressions on their faces, I could almost hear them cursing me in their hearts as a foolish donkey. But I didn't start the pharmaceutical company to make money. As I pondered this, that annoying guy came back again. He still appeared silently by my side. Although I hate him, this time he doesn't seem so annoying. At least in his eyes. These so-called wealthy financial tycoons are still worthless poor fools. I'm surprised by his thoughts. At this point, he seemed to proudly show me 5 yellowish paper money notes. Then, with a smug look, he told me, this kind of money is the real money. Yang Jian's money. Even if you can spend for 100 years, your lifespan is still limited. And after you die, this cash will be the money that stays with you for life. He told me that this kind of cash is not produced by Yang Jian. This money is also a very precious commodity. I admit I'm a bit jealous, but I still stubbornly hold on. I told him, I don't need it right now. He didn't argue with me. Instead, he burned a banknote on the spot. When the banknote caught fire, I saw a shadow. The content below is the same as before. It's all completely blurred. Clearly, what happens next seems to be something I'm not allowed to see. Seeing this, Ding Xiaoyi was somewhat frantic. This blurring treatment is just like a mosaic. But he closed the diary. Ding Xiaoyi thoughtfully took out the banknotes from the Qian family. The old man left himself 2 banknotes. In the eyes of lawyer Wang Ku and other company employees, this was just the old man's prank. But from the content of the diary, the value of these 2 banknotes is likely not as simple as it seems. What exactly will happen? Return the banknotes to the Qian family. After tidying up the room, Yin Xiaoyi picked up the Xiaoyu mirror and walked outside. He wanted to quickly sort through the messy things outside. He checked to see if there were any treasures he could use inside. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. The ghost sound pearl was produced by the fierce spirit lamp beast of the Yellow Springs. Bait. Cast into the water. It can emit whispers, but also confounds the spirits. It is drawn by its sound. The spirit lantern beast hunts this way. Yet it often attracts great calamities. 5 matters fail. Harmed instead. Ding Xiaoyi even conducted a special experiment. After tossing the beads into the water, they indeed emitted a strange sound. However, to him, it didn't seem remarkable at all. But the large-headed monster and the meatball next to him started to become somewhat uncontrollable in the eerie sound. They had an intoxicated expression. Clearly, it was just a big head. It really created a sense of Latin dance. After repeated experiments, he confirmed that dropping this bead into the basin would allow the sound to reach about 5 meters around. But if the basin is replaced with a glass filled with water, the sound can be transmitted to over 10 meters away. It's easy to imagine how far this thing can spread its sound in the underworld. This is a great tool. especially since it's only targeted at Linglong creatures. This feature makes him very satisfied. Whether it's luring enemies or confusing them, the other party throws it into the water. It will inevitably have unexpected effects. Moreover, even if it's not useful in reality, it can still be used in the underworld. Find an iron cage and toss the pearl into the underworld. Wait for the tide to recede. There might just be a disaster in those puddles. In short, this pearl is a good thing. Ding Xiaoyi happily put the pearl away. Then, he used the ghost mirror to inspect the other items salvaged from the royal power. Illyrium, born in the shallows of royal power. Soaked in clear water. Sprinkle with garlic, green onion, and ginger. Pour hot oil over it. Its taste is delicious. The aftertaste is sweet. Eating it can improve vision. To be honest, if it weren't for the last line about improving vision, Yin Xiao would have already shattered this mirror's heart. It wouldn't have lasted 3 days. It wasn't entirely without some weight loss. Besides the ghosting pearl, there was another item that, when discovered, made Ding Xiaoyi overjoyed. Until he heard the last 2 words from the demon-revealing mirror. Ding Xiaoyi almost coughed up blood. Yin polar blood body. The ultimate great medicine from beneath the yellow springs. Eating raw bones can create blood and flesh. Monsters can recover by consuming it. Injured bodies. Living people eat it. And their flesh becomes as hard as iron. They have immense strength. Fearless of swords, blades, or clubs, and unafraid of water or fire like insects. Just as Ding Xiaoyi excitedly picked up the blood rod, he heard Zhao Yojing's low chuckle in his ear. Ha. After consumption, you must wipe your body with clean water. Lie still on the bed. Within 3 days, you'll become a zombie. Screw you. When Ding Xiaoyi heard this, he almost threw the mirror in his hand. After all this time, it turns out this thing is meant for big head. No problem. If a living person like me eats it, I'd instantly drop dead. And after dying, I'd turn into a zombie. Looks like I can only bargain with the big guy. Ding Xiaoyi's gaze turned toward the vast yellow springs before him. Suddenly, he remembered something. He whistled. It summoned the meatball. He took a candy from his pocket. After unwrapping it, he tossed it to the meatball. The meatball sensed something was thrown over. The meatball instinctively opened its mouth to catch a sweet and sour candy that entered. The entire body of the meatball shook. It used to be a ball. But after this shake, it wobbled out of shape. I hope it won't get sick from eating that. The way the meatball looks seems a bit off. Ding Xiaoyi rushed over. The meatball shook more and more violently. Suddenly, the meatball stood still on the spot. No way. It can't be true. Upon seeing this, Ding Xiaoyi was startled. This was a hard-earned helper. I hope it doesn't get ruined over a candy. At that moment, the little meatball rolled vigorously on the ground, and directly rolled to Ding Xiaoyi's feet. It immediately hugged Ding Xiaoyi's thigh, and showed him a radiant smile. Imitating the sound of the big head, it danced and shouted, "So delicious. Who? You startled me. Gave me a fright." Ding Xiaoyi kicked the meatball away with a look of disdain. He took 2 candies out of his pocket, unwrapped them, and threw them back to the meatball. The meatball immediately grabbed the candies, with a look of pure delight on its face. The big-headed monster beside looked at Meatball with contempt. "Do you still want some?" Ding Xiaoyi took out a piece of candy. He waved it in front of Meatball, slowly peeling off the candy wrapper. Then, right in front of Meatball's longing gaze, he put it directly into his own mouth. "You've already exceeded your share for today, so this can't be yours. Here, eat this." When he spoke, his gaze was fixed on Rukyu. He was observing Rukyu's movements. Sure enough, when Ding Xiaoyi ate the candy in his hand, Rukyu's body relaxed a little in an instant. But he still stayed there without moving. This move made Ding Xiaoyi very pleased. So he took out 3 more candies from his pocket, and handed them to Rukyu. "But you were very obedient today, so I'll give you an extra reward of 3 candies." Hearing this, Rukyu's limp body suddenly perked up with energy, as if he had taken Viagra, full of vigor and strength. "Look at how happy the meatball seems." Ding Xiaoyi took out a black glove. "Now you look like this. I won't allow you to change into any other form. You must not change into any other form." The meatball, which had just received a reward, obediently transformed into the shape of the glove. Ding Xiaoyi glanced over at the large gold piece beside him, which was as big as a football. He extended his palm and said, "Swallow him." As his voice fell, the black glove on his hand made a spine-chilling squirming sound. Thin, elongated tentacles extended out. They quickly wrapped around the gold. In the blink of an eye, the gold disappeared from sight. The whole process was quick. And most importantly, he didn't feel any change in weight at all. He put the gloves on his hands. The 2 gloves together were exactly identical. There was no visible difference between them. This result made Ding Xiaoyi very satisfied. Ding Xiaoyi returned to reality. The things he ordered online started arriving one after another. He took the engine off that Explorer. This type of engine only needs an energy rod to start. Some damaged parts were replaced with new components by Ding Xiaoyi. Then he began the modifications. For Ding Xiaoyi, this wasn't a difficult task. "Here's your milk tea and steamed buns. Wang Jiaoyang handed the breakfast he bought to Wei Ding, while holding a steaming hot bun in his hand. Sitting in the car, enjoying the cool air conditioning inside, eating the delicious bun in his mouth. Do you know whose house this is? Heaven. When I saw the information, I almost thought I was seeing things. Wang Jiaoyang exaggeratedly reported the information he had found recently to Reading. At this point, Wang Jiaoyang deliberately paused for a moment, waiting for Reading to ask whose house this was. However, after waiting for a while, there was no sign of Reading speaking up. He could only continue to say that the specific name of Granny Zhang was unknown. Age unknown. Habits unknown. In short, all that can be found in the file is unknown. Or unknown. As Wang Jiaoyang joked, you say so much is unknown. Does that count as cursing the old man to leave early? Woo-woo, before he finished speaking, a mighty hand covered his mouth. Shenyin. As he spoke, Reading let go. The doctor said that Grandma Zhang was once an officer. In a way, she is still his former subordinate. If you don't know, don't speak carelessly. Illness comes from the mouth. Disaster comes from the mouth. This is an old saying of you Huaxia people. You should know better than me. Getting scolded by Reading. Wang Jiaoyang's face flushed red. Just as he was about to speak, the tightly shut door in front of them suddenly opened. Reading's eyes suddenly lit up. His gaze locked onto Ding Xiaoyi. They saw Ding Xiaoyi carefully close the door. After I reached the street and got into a hover car, I drove off. I had been following him for 3 days here. Today, I finally saw Ding Xiaoyi walking out of the door. Ding started the car and followed closely behind. The car headed toward the outskirts of City S. It went all the way to the suburban transfer station. Ding Xiaoyi gets out of the car and looks around. He steps into the transit station's office hall. He stands in front of the corridor in the trading area. Through the glass, Ding Xiaoyi can directly see the 4 rooftops in the back. Warehouses. His dark pupils are much blacker than the average person's. It's far away, but I still locked my gaze on the location of warehouse number 2. This is largely thanks to the fact that after those ghostly events, the next day when I woke up, my vision became clear all of a sudden. I fixed my eyes on warehouse number 2. 120 meters. No guards. An old-fashioned K-19 access control. There are 2 cameras, one on each side, 13 meters apart in front of each warehouse. They cross. No blind spots. The old access control should have been phased out long ago. The latest version of this brand's access control has already been updated to the 7th generation. For him, however, cracking this access control might only require a screwdriver. Upon closer inspection, I just realized that this old-fashioned security system is actually a distraction. It seems I have to think of another way. Just when Ding Xiaoyi was feeling very disappointed, suddenly the glove on his left hand began to move restlessly. The restless movement of the paw made Ding Xiaoyi's heart skip a beat. He quickly turned his palm away. At that moment, Ding Xiaoyi slowly folded his hands together. He covered his palm with the other hand. At that moment, a white man with brown hair walked up to Ding Xiaoyi with a box. Sir, this is your item. But since it is cash on delivery, you need to settle the remaining payment before you can take it. May I ask if you will be paying in cash? No, wait for the manager to finish speaking. Ding Xiao had already handed over the prepared cash. Thick stacks of bills are always more enticing than simple numbers on a screen. Even though it's tacky, when it comes to flaunting wealth with money, being a little tacky is more effective. Sure enough, after seeing the alliance currency being handed over, the manager's smile became even brighter. Ding Xiaoyi's extravagance, along with his high credit rating, was clearly something any company would appreciate. The client then learned from the manager that warehouse number 2 is a large cold storage, specifically for storing items that need to be kept in a frozen environment. Ding Xiaoyi nodded. He interrupted the experience that was about to continue. I am very curious. Can your freezer temperature meet my standards? Can you take me for a tour? The manager looked very conflicted. It seemed that this matter was quite difficult to handle. Seeing this, Ding Xiaoyi lifts the suitcase beside him. He extends his hand to the manager and says, after all, these things you mentioned, I haven't seen them, have I? Of course. If your company doesn't allow customers to visit, I won't insist either. The manager pauses. After a quick glance left and right, he calmly reached out his hand. The manager smiled and quickly withdrew his hand. He tucked it into his pocket. It's generally said to be prohibited, but the gentleman's sincerity and high credit allow him to enjoy such privileges. You are the most professional manager I have ever seen. Ding Xiaoyi is not at all stingy with her praise. Please come this way. The manager gestures for her to enter. He leads Ding Xiaoyi into a nearby staff passage. After reaching the door of the warehouse, the manager takes out a black access card from his pocket. He swipes it on the access control. The staff passage on the side of the main gate has been opened. Due to company management regulations, we can only stay in the employee area. We cannot enter the storage area. After all, only robots can access the storage area. There is an alarm system inside. If a person enters the storage area, it will trigger the alarm. The manager patiently explained the situation of the warehouse to Ding Xiaoyi. If that's the case, I'm even more relieved. Ding Xiaoyi nodded. He followed the manager through the staff entrance. Damn it. That guy only mentioned warehouse number 2. Who knew there was? Ding Xiaoyi. He couldn't help but curse inwardly. As he faced the deep hole area of the warehouse, the agitation of the fleshball became more intense. Deep hole. There is something in the area. This forced him to pretend he was uninterested in the deep hole area. After taking a few steps toward the shallow hole area, the fleshball finally calmed down. But what exactly is the vivid void? The meatball is a creature born of the imperial power in this land. Although the demon-revealing mirror hasn't classified the meatball, it certainly won't be inferior to those high heels. Could it be that the things in the deep cave area are even higher than the evil spirit level, reaching the disaster level of spiritual energy? After this thought crossed my mind, it was quickly eroded away by myself. But no matter what it is, the things lurking in the deep hole area are tricky for him. Clearly, they are toys he shouldn't touch. Thinking of this, Ding Xiaoyi had made up his mind. Once he leaves the transfer station, he will send an anonymous tip to the police station. Such troublesome matters. He doesn't want to get involved at all. After leaving the warehouse with the manager, Ding Xiaoyi also went back to think about an excuse to say goodbye to the manager and leave. After walking out of the transit pod, a hovering car slowly stopped in front of Ding Xiaoying. The car door opened, and a bald, chubby man was struggling to twist and get out of the back seat. But it seems that being overweight is not easy, little brother. Help me out here. The fat guy twisted a bit. It seems he still can't climb out. He was sweating all over, and could only force a smile to cover his embarrassment. Ding Xiaoyi was watching. It seemed really difficult for the fat guy. He stepped forward, wanting to give him a hand. But just as he reached out his hand, Ding Xiaoyi suddenly felt something was off. Before he could figure out exactly what was wrong, the fat guy grabbed Ding Xiaoyi's wrist. Immediately, Ding Xiaoyi's face changed dramatically. Instinctively, he tried to break free from the man's grip. But at that moment, a surge of electricity erupted from the fat guy's palm. The sudden shock of electricity left Ding Xiaoyi at a loss. His entire body went numb. He couldn't muster any strength at all. He was directly pulled into the car by the fat guy. Don't struggle. If you dare to scream, I'll break your throat first. The rough palm felt like a pair of iron pincers. It gripped tightly around his neck. Ding Xiaoyi had no doubt about the strength of that hand. It could twist his neck like twisting a sugar cane. The first thing that came to Ding Xiaoyi's mind was the person who had tried to kill him last time. They both possessed abilities that ordinary people couldn't explain. The two seemed to be part of the same group. He couldn't help but glance toward the driver's seat. Unlike the fat guy, the driver is quite thin. His neck and face look very serious. Ding Xiaoyi relaxed his body. He pretended to look very frightened and anxious. His hands were tightly clenched into a fist. It seemed he was trying hard to suppress his fear. He asked, "How much do you want?" "I gave you everything. Don't kill me," he said, reaching for his wallet. "Don't move." The fat guy rudely interrupted Ding Xiaoyi's small action. He yanked Ding Xiaoyi over. He took the phone out of Ding Xiaoyi's arms. "We're not robbers. Don't try any more tricks." Just hear the phone click. It was crushed into pieces by that fat hand. Looking at Ding Xiaoyi, his face turned pale. Only then did the fat man satisfactorily open Ding Xiaoyi's suitcase. But upon seeing that it only contained energy bars, he tossed them aside with a look of disdain. "Someone is following us." The person with a thick neck sitting in the driver's seat scanned the rearview mirror with his eyes. A hovering vehicle was closely following behind. Bamboo Forest Guild. When the fat man mentioned these 4 words, his expression became somewhat tense. "I don't know if they notified the leader or not, but we need to find a place to rendezvous." "Okay." The fat guy nodded. He took out his phone and quickly dialed a string of numbers. Ding Xiaoyi wanted to sneak a peek, but the fat guy was clearly on guard. He kept his back turned while making the call. After a series of beeping tones from the phone, it abruptly hung up. Seeing this, a shadow fell over Fatty's face. The signal is being jammed. It must be the Bamboo Grove Guild. Change direction. Let's head east. There's a sanctuary over there. Where to? We can shake them off there. The person with the square face remained silent. Mao Guang focused on the left and right forks ahead. He accelerated towards the left. Just as he was about to rush into the fork, he suddenly turned the steering wheel. With the car spinning 180 degrees on the spot, Ding Xiaoyi almost got thrown out. The sound of the hovercar's chassis scraping against the track was sharp and piercing. One can even see orange sparks splattering on the glass. The car made a rapid spin on the track. The front of the car suddenly accelerated. It quickly cut into the adjacent flow of traffic. Then it veered into the right fork. Chuling Guild. Ding Xiaoyi had heard this name from the fat man for the second time. How did his own matter get tied up with the Chuling Guild again? Moreover, from the expression of the fat man, it seems he is very wary of the Chuling Guild. Thinking this, there might still be a chance to escape. Besides, I have a secret weapon. Damn. Seeing this, it was too late for Redding to change direction. He jumped down from the car. His body rolled on the ground, narrowly avoiding the collision with the vehicle behind. A cart flips over and jumps up from the ground, performing movements that are extremely uncharacteristic for its size. It leaps high, landing on a hovering vehicle heading toward the right turn. In just a few moments, it climbs onto the hover car. and violently shatters the glass. He threw the bewildered driver into the back seat and got into the driver's seat. He slammed the gas pedal down. The hover car Redding was driving quickly reappeared in the square-faced man's waiting camera feed. Redding didn't follow anymore. Instead, he floored the gas pedal again and accelerated to ram straight into him. Humph. The car swerved violently after crashing into a private car on the right. It slammed hard against the edge of the track. The fat guy in the car glanced back. Through the window, he saw Redding in the driver's seat. His chest, cursing faintly, "This bastard has a death wish. Damn it, I'll kill him." The fat man took a piece of black wood from his pocket. The appearance of the wood made Ding Xiaoyi's eyes light up. He could clearly sense that this piece of wood was emanating a very uncomfortable aura. It seemed to be a spiritual creature. But why would a spiritual creature obey someone else's commands? Is there some kind of trick involved? Ding Xiaoyi felt a surge of curiosity. Don't make a move. It's daytime now. You can't kill him. Instead, he will probe your weaknesses. Hold on tight. The square-faced man is getting sharp. After scanning the rear-view image, a cold smile appears at the corner of his mouth. The car makes a turn. They rammed through the tunnel and drove into the primitive jungle below. By this time, there were only 5 or 6 meters of height left. As the car was about to plunge down, they heard the square-faced man shout, "Jump." Then they saw the fat man grab Ding Xiaoyi. His bulky body displayed an unexpectedly agile movement as he swiftly jumped out of the car. I'm afraid of heights. Ding Xiaoyi looked at the almost primal jungle in front of him. He knew his chance had come. He tightly wrapped his arms around the fat man's waist. The fat man stomped heavily on the ground. His massive weight caused a gust of wind to swirl up from the ground, blowing out in all directions. He casually shoved Ding Xiaoyi to the ground. "What the hell are you yelling for? Shout again, and I'll break your neck." Facing the fat man's threat, Ding Xiaoyi's face turned pale. With a look of terror, he covered his mouth. His eyes glanced at the fat man's lower back. He saw that the fleshy ball, which had come off his hand, was like a worm, and quietly wriggled into the fat man's waistband. Tui. Coward. The fat guy was completely unaware of the lump of flesh crawling into his lower back. He just saw Ding Xiaoyi's cowardly appearance and couldn't help but give him a disdainful look. He had even less faith in this young man, Ding Xiaoyi. He even doubted. Is there a problem with the intel? Someone this cowardly. How could they possibly have leads on the cargo? Keep an eye on him. Take him and leave first. I'll deal with that culinary mage. If necessary. The square-faced one will jump down from the treetop. He looks to the side at Ding Xiaoyi. He makes a beheading gesture. Ding Xiaoyi feels a chill in his heart. A layer of gloom covers his eyes. But he cleverly uses his hand to conceal it. He covers his head with both hands. He puts on a very frightened look. You can rest assured, this kid is definitely safe with me. No problem at all. Be careful not to get too attached. The chubby guy nodded and reminded me, behind the square-faced guy. I quickly grabbed Ding Xiaoyi and rushed into the bushes. I watched as the chubby guy's figure gradually disappeared into the dense forest. The square-faced guy turned around. Look up at the gap in the overhead track. At this moment, Redding is standing at the gap. Seeing this, the square-faced man smiled slightly. He stepped back, gradually retreating into the bushes behind, until he disappeared from sight. Kill, kill, kill from the bushes. The fat man hurriedly moved forward, holding on to Ding Xiaoyi. After running for a while, the fat guy casually threw Ding Xiaoyi to the ground. Damn, I'm exhausted. Ding Xiaoyi rolled on the ground for a while, before slowly getting up. He looked back at the square-faced guy with curiosity and asked, "Aren't you worried about your friend? I see that big guy behind us. He looks pretty tough." The fat guy trembled. Then he sneered. "I'm not friends with him. If I have the chance, I'd rather break his neck myself. But don't worry. He can't die. In a one-on-one situation, we soulbinders absolutely have the upper hand." Soulbinders? He had never heard of such a name.